The very first thing I did after my rebirth was to burn through tens of millions in cash to take my best brother and the school's campus belle to get tattoos. My brother had Nezha tattooed on his left arm and the true Lord Erlang on his right, while the campus bell was adorned with the 9 heavens mysterious maiden. As for me, I had Pangu cleaving the heavens inked across my chest, the 9 dragons pulling a coffin on my back, the Eastern Emperor Tai Yi on my left leg, and the great sage equaling heaven on my right. I even mortgaged my assets to secure 300 million in cash, which I used to purchase an abandoned air raid shelter buried deep within the mountains. Everyone mocked me, branding me a reckless spendthrift, wasting his family fortune. Yet they were oblivious to the fact that in 20 days, the apocalypse would descend upon the world. At that moment, every creature and plant across the globe would undergo a frenzied mutation. Docile house pets would transform into bloodthirsty monsters. Mere weeds along the roadside would mutate into meat grinders. Humanity would be instantly cast down from the pinnacle of the food chain into the deepest abyss. Only those who possess these tattoos would be capable of awakening supernatural totem powers. With exactly 20 days remaining until the crimson moon descended, I did not hesitate for even a fraction of a second, and immediately dialed my personal lawyer. Lawyer Zhang was instructed to take my entire shareholding, valued at 1 billion, along with my real estate and luxury vehicles, and mortgage them to international loan sharks. I cared only for cash. I was willing to sell them at a loss, even if it meant receiving only 30% of their true value. Within the next 24 hours, I needed to see 300 million in cash deposited into my account. After hanging up, I quickly made 2 more calls. Half an hour later, at the most clandestine tattoo parlor in Jiangzhou City, my closest brother, Xu Xiaodao, and the famously cold campus belle of Jiangzhou University, Jiang Xinyi, were dragged here by me, their faces etched with utter bewilderment. Brother Lie, have you lost your mind? You mortgaged your entire fortune just to bring us here to get tattoos? Qin Lie, what in the world are you doing? If you are acting out because that woman Zhao Yuqing broke up with you, there is no need to ruin yourself like this. I looked at them, my voice more solemn than it had ever been. Xinyi, Xiaodao, there is no time for explanations. If you still trust me, then listen to my instructions today. Seeing the seriousness in my eyes, a look so intense it was almost foreign, the 2 of them finally gritted their teeth and nodded in agreement. I turned to look at the stout tattoo artist with a scarred face, slamming a bank card containing 1 million onto the table. Master, I have a massive job for you. I pointed at Xu Xiaodao, telling him to tattoo Nezha on his left arm and the true Lord Erlang on his right. Afterward, I looked toward Jiang Xinyi and instructed him to tattoo the 9 heavens mysterious maiden across her entire back. Jiang Xinyi was stunned, a flicker of complex emotion crossing her cold, elegant eyes. Qin Lie, when did I ever give you permission to decide my fate for me? I looked at her, my voice dropping several octaves. In this life, I will not let you die again. The pupils of Jiang Xinyi constricted slightly. She did not understand the significance of my words, but I vividly remembered that in my past life, Jiang Xinyi was dragged into a cavern by a mutated wild boar while trying to save me. By the time I found her, only her blood-stained lower half remained. In this life, I must ensure she remains perfectly safe. The old master's eyelids twitched as he accepted the bank card. That is easily arranged. But what about you? I removed my shirt, revealing my sturdy torso, and enunciated every word. Protect my life. I want the Pangu cleaving the heavens tattooed on my chest, the 9 dragons pulling the coffin on my back, Dong Huang Tai Yi on my left leg, and the great sage equaling heaven on my right leg. Clatter! The tattoo machine fell from the old master's hand onto the ground. He looked at me as if I were a madman. Boy, do you no longer wish to live. Pangu cleaving the heavens is already a forbidden destiny, and yet you also want the 9 dragons pulling the coffin. That is not merely an ordinary mythological totem, but a forbidden, ominous sigil that buries 10,000 spirits. I let out a cold laugh. If 1 million is not enough, I will give you 10 million. I want you to personally wield the needle, with others assisting you, and it must be completed within 7 days. The old master's expression shifted. 7 days? You have lost your mind. With such a massive area to cover, 7 days is fundamentally impossible. I pulled a list from my jacket and threw it onto the table. Military-grade blood clotting agents, biological recovery patches, imported painkillers, and anti-infection medication. I have prepared everything. You only need to focus on the tattooing. I shall bear the burden of my own life. The old master stared at me, silent for half a minute, before finally stooping to pick up the tattoo machine. His voice raspy, he replied, "Fine. I have spent my entire life tattooing, yet I have never seen anyone as insane as you. This job, my ghost engraving studio, accepts." 3 days later, in the deep mountains on the outskirts of Jiangzhou City, the abandoned underground base codenamed Black Rock. On the surface, this place was once an air raid shelter left over from the Cold War era, later repurposed as a high-security prison for dangerous criminals. Yet, I knew its true nature was an underground command center sealed away since the old age. The structural framework, the ventilation ducts, the water circulation system, all of it remained intact. My investment was not meant to build from scratch, but to reactivate and fortify the core systems and defensive armaments. During these 3 days, I personally visited the Blackrock base only once to sign the contract, inspect the structural integrity, and confirm that the energy well and ventilation systems were still functional. All other matters I delegated entirely to my lawyers and the construction team. After all, the true consumer of my time was not the acquisition of the base, but the 4 forbidden totems etched upon my body. Are you truly certain you wish to spend 30 million on this dilapidated, god-forsaken ruin? The real estate agent wiped the cold sweat from his brow as he looked at me. I am Jiangju's most notorious prodigal son. I am not merely buying it. I intend to renovate it entirely. I struck my signature onto the contract and demanded he connect me with the finest architectural and security teams in the nation. Within 10 days, I intend to transform this place into an apocalyptic fortress through which not even a fly could venture. 5-meter-tall military-grade titanium alloy walls, riot-proof blast doors weighing tens of millions of tons, a state-of-the-art ecological circulation system, and that energy core sealed deep beneath the earth. Everything must be repaired and brought back to full operation. I liquidated 100 million in cash to be poured into this project within 10 days. Money is of no concern. I shall offer triple the wages for 24-hour continuous labor. With every directive I issued, the entire architectural circle of Jiangju City was shaken to its core. At this moment, I sat shirtless in the innermost private room of the Ghost Pavilion tattoo parlor in the basement. Yellowish light cast shadows upon walls, adorned with sketches of ferocious and eerie totems. The air was thick, with the scent of disinfectant mingled with the sharp tang of tattoo ink. The old master of the Ghost Pavilion held the needle himself, while 3 apprentices stood by to assist with ink mixing, outlining, and cleaning the wounds. The 9 dragons pulling the coffin on my back had finally reached the completion of the first black dragon's outline. Although the dragon's eyes had yet to be dotted, it already exuded an indescribable sense of oppression. Tu Xiaodao sat in the adjacent room, the image of Naya taking shape on his left. Jiang Xinyi remained in a separate room, where a female tattoo artist continued to refine the intricate details of the 9 heavens' mysterious maiden upon her skin. My phone lay beside me, constantly within reach. The screen was flooded with an unending stream of messages from lawyers, brokers, architectural teams, and material suppliers. I endured the bone-chilling agony of the needle piercing my flesh, all while managing the instructions from afar. The renovation of the Blackrock base was progressing in tandem with the tattooing process and the construction of the apocalyptic fortress. Neither task could afford the slightest delay. I scrolled through my phone listlessly until a push notification appeared, one that left me momentarily stunned. The wealthy heir Qin Lie had liquidated all his assets, retreating into the depths of the desolate mountains to purchase an abandoned prison. I opened a live streaming application, randomly clicking on a room currently topping the city's trending charts. It was none other than my sworn enemy, Xu Rui, the son of the wealthiest man in Jiangzhou. On the screen, Xu Rui sat within a luxurious villa in the city center, swirling a glass of red wine and laughing hysterically. Ha ha. What has become of Qin Lie? Could he have finally suffered a mental breakdown? Young Master Xu. It is fortunate I saw through his madness early on and cast him aside. I heard he even dragged that noble girl, Jiang Xinyi, into getting those common, criminal-style tattoos. It is truly laughable. As the camera shifted, a crimson flower tattoo was exposed at Zhao Yuking's waist, vivid and alluring as fresh blood. I cast a glance at it, my gaze cooling instantly. A spider lily. In my past life, Zhao Yuking never possessed such a tattoo. It seems that in this life, she has gone to great lengths to ingratiate herself with Xu Rui. Xu Rui shouted excitedly toward the camera lens. My friends, tell me, who could possibly understand this? Not only did Qin Lie pour all his wealth into that decrepit hole in the mountains, but I hear he has spent over 100 million at major supermarkets to hoard rice and pork, as if he intends to hole himself up in there for the rest of his life. Haha. The chat box in the live stream erupted instantly. My poverty has truly limited my imagination. Is the mental state of the wealthy always so far ahead of their time? Jiang Xinyi was our dream goddess, yet she is actually following him into a bomb shelter? Verdict reached. Qin Lie has clearly lost his mind. I suggest he be sent straight to a psychiatric ward. Seeing the overwhelming tide of ridicule and vitriol flooding the internet, Xu Xiaodao trembled with rage. Brother Lai, that bastard Xu Rui is manipulating public opinion to subject you to cyberbullying. Let me go out and settle the score with him. Pay him no mind. I felt the sharp pain of the needle as it tore through my skin. Watching the arrogant sneer on Xu Rui's face on the screen, my gaze remained indifferent. The higher he dances now, the more miserable his wails will be when the end arrives. Xiaodao, continue monitoring the supply caravan. Our post-apocalyptic fortress cannot afford the slightest error. Exactly 7 days have passed since my rebirth, and in these 7 days, I have barely stepped out of this underground chamber. The elderly master of the ghost tattoo parlor led his 3 disciples in shifts. They etched the outlines by day, applied color by night, and refined the details at dawn. To keep up with the schedule, I even had my men acquire military-grade rapid curing gel and biological recovery patches from the black market. As soon as a section of the totem was completed, I would immediately apply the rapid curing gel to seal the wounds. Otherwise, given this intensity, my skin would have surely failed to hold up long ago. Late on the 7th night, in the deepest room of the ghost tattoo parlor, the sound of the tattoo machine finally fell silent. The tattoos of Nezha and Erlang Shen on Xu Xiaodao's body had been completed 2 days prior. The 9 Heavens Mysterious Lady on Jiang Xinyi's body also received its final stroke yesterday. As for my own body, the 4 great forbidden totems were finally complete. Across my chest, Pangu opening the heavens. On my back, 9 dragons pulling the coffin. On my left leg, Donghuang Taiyi, and on my right leg, the Monkey King, Sun Wukong. The elderly master of the ghost tattoo parlor removed his gloves, looked at the patterns upon my body, and let out a long, heavy sigh. It is finished, young Master Qin. I have spent my entire life tattooing, but I have never accepted a commission as monumental as this one. Pangu opening the heavens. 9 dragons pulling the coffin, Donghuang Taiyi, and the Monkey King. To say nothing of the rest, this collection alone, within the entire tattoo circle of Jiangju, there is no one who would dare claim they could surpass the ghost parlor. I rose from the tattooing chair and looked into the mirror. The 4 great forbidden totems blanketed my chest, my back, and my 2 legs. Each line was razor sharp, ancient and profound. Especially the 9 dragons pulling the coffin upon my back. 9 black dragons coiled and ascended along both sides of my spine, their scales overlapping in intricate layers. The 9 dragon tails converged at the center of my back, firmly hauling an ancient black coffin. Around the black coffin, blood-red chains were tightly wound. Although they were clearly just tattoos, they emanated an indescribable sense of oppression. Xu Xiaodao circled me, unable to help but swallow hard. Brother Lie, this is truly ruthless. If I hadn't seen you getting them inked with my own eyes, I would have suspected these things might move on their own at night. I put on my shirt to conceal the totems. For now, they were merely tattoos. But when the blood moon descends, they will truly awaken. Xu Xiaodao was startled. The blood moon? I did not offer an immediate explanation, merely picking up my phone to check the time. 12 days remain until the blood moon descends. Let us depart. It is time to inspect our doomsday fortress at the Black Stone base. 2 hours later, we arrived deep within the mountain range on the outskirts of Jiangzhou City. The underground base, codenamed Black Stone, had largely completed its renovation. The ventilation system, energy core, and ecological circulation system had all been successfully brought back online. For the next 12 days, I barely allowed myself a moment of rest. During the day, I personally oversaw the final stages of the Black Stone base's modifications. At night, I utilized the primal essence of my reincarnation to suppress the backlash of the 4 forbidden totems. Convoys of transport trucks arrived in an endless stream, delivering supplies into the base. Rice, flour, frozen fresh meat, and canned goods, drinking water, medical supplies, and diesel fuel, heavy-duty all-terrain vehicles, and backup power generators, military-grade protective gear, every survival resource available for purchase. I bought them all. Those on the outside believed I had lost my mind. Only I knew that time for this civilized world was running thin. One day before the blood moon descended, the final shipment of supplies was delivered to the Blackstone base. Inside the storage warehouse, rice, flour, drinking water, canned goods, frozen fresh meat, medical supplies, diesel fuel, backup generators, and military-grade protective gear were stacked high like mountains. With supplies piled 3 layers deep, the massive underground storage facility was nearly packed to capacity. Xu Xiaodao stood at the warehouse entrance, staring in stunned silence. Brother Lai, do you intend to live in here until the next lifetime? Jiang Xinyi also stood in silence, observing everything before her. Although she had long known I was stockpiling a massive amount of supplies, seeing this underground vault overflowing with life-sustaining resources with her own eyes, she could not help but knit her brows. Qin Lie, what exactly are you preparing for? I did not answer immediately, instead walking to the center of the warehouse and slowly raising my right hand. The next moment, the ground trembled. Whoosh! The supplies, which had stood as tall as a 3-story building and weighed thousands of tons, vanished into thin air. The underground warehouse, which had been packed to the brim, was emptied within a single, fleeting second, leaving behind only the deep indentations on the floor from the heavy weight, and the lingering scent of Tu Xiaodao stood frozen in his tracks. He blinked rapidly, then rubbed his eyes in disbelief. Finally, he rushed into the center of the warehouse and ran around the empty space 3 times. In complete shock, he turned to face me, his voice trembling uncontrollably. Brother Lai, Where did the supplies go? Where did an entire warehouse full of goods vanish to? I barely blinked for a second. Several thousand tons of supplies have disappeared, and there isn't even a secret basement here. Are you performing some kind of illusion? Jiang Xinyi's reaction was not as exaggerated as Tu Xiaodao's, but her eyes, which were usually calm and composed, had clearly lost their steady focus at this moment. She walked slowly toward me, staring intently at my right hand. Brother Lie, what exactly is going on here? I remained silent for a moment. Things had reached this point, and there was no longer a need to conceal the truth from them. With less than 24 hours remaining until the blood moon descends, they needed to know the reality of the situation. I slowly opened my mouth to speak, explaining that this was a spatial dimension, linked to certain unique changes within me. Regarding my rebirth, I had not yet revealed the full truth, not because I distrusted them, but because speaking too much now would only increase their psychological burden. I continued, stating that the two of them only needed to know that this space could store vast quantities of supplies. Furthermore, time within this space was nearly frozen. Food placed inside would not rot or decay, medicine would not lose its efficacy, and diesel fuel, weapons, and spirit cores could be preserved for a long time. Tu Xiaodao's jaw dropped. So all the supplies you accumulated were not meant to be stacked in a warehouse, but to be carried with you at all times. That is correct, Brother Lie. What exactly have you been hiding from us? Tomorrow night, the blood moon will descend. At midnight, tomorrow, the moon in the sky will turn the color of blood. Immediately afterward, black mist will rise from beneath the earth, sweeping across the globe, causing all flora and fauna to mutate violently. Dogs and cats will transform into monsters that prey upon mankind. Plants will devour the living, and the city will descend into chaos within a matter of hours. Human civilization will crumble overnight. In a silent, cavernous warehouse, the lips of Tu Xiaodao trembled. This time, he did not immediately offer a jest, for the sight of several thousand tons of supplies vanishing into thin air moments ago had utterly shattered his perception of reality. Jiang Xinyi offered no rebuttal. She merely stared intently at me. Where is the proof? What you just witnessed is one such proof, as are the tattoos etched upon your bodies. Jiang Xinyi instinctively looked toward her own back. I continued. The blood moon energy will activate the tattoos on human skin, causing them to manifest as true totem avatars. Ordinary tattoos can only awaken the most basic physical enhancements. Beast-type tattoos can awaken bestial transformation abilities, while mythological totems can awaken true, powerful avatars. The more ancient and complete the totem, and the greater the fate it bears, the more terrifying the power awakened shall be. So, you told me to tattoo Nezha and Erlang Shen so that I could survive? Your Nezha and Erlang Xian Sheng Shen Jun are both peak-tier mythological totems. As long as you can endure the awakening of the blood moon, you will be far stronger than the vast majority of the awakened. I then turned my gaze toward Jiang Xinyi. Xinyi, your Nine Heavens mysterious lady, is a noble avatar that balances offense and defense, capable of purification and dominating the battlefield. In the apocalypse, mutated beasts, corrupted by poison and mental erosion, will grow ever more numerous. Your totem is vital. So, selling all your assets to purchase the Blackrock base, hoarding supplies, and taking us to get these tattoos, none of this was a whim. You knew all along that a catastrophe was coming. The shock on Jiang Xinyi's face gradually faded, replaced by deep tension. The look in Tu Xiaodao's eyes transformed instantly as well. That's not right, Brother Lie. What about my parents? My parents are still at the auto repair shop in the south of the city. Do not be anxious. I have already dispatched people to bring them here. What did you say? That is the live broadcast feed transmitted back by the convoy. A black, riot-proof business vehicle is currently idling outside the old street in the south of the city. The car door opens, and two bodyguards clad in black tactical gear escort a middle-aged couple into the vehicle. The man is not tall. His complexion is swarthy, and his hands are stained with the oil and grease accumulated from years of repairing vehicles. Tu Xiaodao stared intently at the screen, his eyes instantly turning bloodshot. I had used the excuse that the Blackrock base required maintenance and logistics personnel to contact his parents in advance. They were unaware of the impending apocalypse, believing instead that I had cordially invited them to work at the base for a few days. The convoy would arrive in 20 minutes. Tu Xiaodao's lips trembled. For a long moment he could not utter a single word. In our previous life, after the blood moon descended, Tu Xiaodao had risked everything to return to the southern part of the city to rescue his parents, but the old streets of the south had already been submerged by a swarm of mutated rats. In the end, he only found his father's broken wrench, and the worn apron his mother could never bring herself to discard. From that moment on, Tu Xiaodao fought the mutated beasts with a maddened, suicidal ferocity, until the day he perished within a beast tide. I vowed that in this life, I would not allow them to endure that agony again. I patted his shoulder. Rest assured, I have already brought your parents here to meet you in this life. Tu Xiaodao bowed his head, his shoulders shaking. After a long while he looked up, his eyes red-rimmed as he spoke. Brother Lie, thank you. I offered a faint smile. Jiang Xinyi watched the scene in silence, and after a moment, she asked in a hushed tone, "What about my father?" Academician Jiang is currently very safe, as you well know. Your father is an academician at the Long Kingdom's Energy Research Institute. Half a month ago, the military escorted him into an underground base in the capital, where he is participating in the highest-level energy core project. It is currently one of the most secure locations in the entire Long Kingdom. As for your mother, I paused for a brief moment. Jiang Xinyi's mother had passed away from illness many years ago. This was a deep wound in her heart. She did not press further, merely nodding gently. I understand. I looked at the two of them, my voice dropping lower. From this moment on, the Blackrock base will be completely sealed. Do not leave the perimeter. Tu Xiaodao drew a deep breath and nodded. Jiang Xinyi slowly reached up to touch the tattoo of the Nine Heavens mysterious maiden on her back. I looked up at the darkness outside the base. Everything was prepared, awaiting only the arrival of the storm. Early the next morning, in the underground living quarters of the Blackrock base, Tu Xiaodao's parents were settled into the most secure living modules. Tu Jiangguo had served as a soldier in his youth, and although he did not know what was about to transpire, after witnessing the defensive specification, he recognized the anomaly immediately. He did not ask for details. He simply patted Tu Xiaodao on the shoulder and said, "Serve CEO Qin well." Li Gilan had been busy in the kitchen all morning, insisting on wrapping a pot of dumplings for us. Tu Xiaodao ate until his eyes turned red, yet a smile remained on his face. Before the apocalypse, the ability to enjoy a hot, home-cooked meal was a luxury that many could only dream of. Last night, I transferred the final batch of supplies into the spatial dimension. The 10-ton titanium alloy door of the Blackrock base was finally locked tight at dawn. The entire underground fortress was brightly lit, and the power core, which had been dormant for years, hummed perfectly. The monitoring screens displayed a 360-degree, unobstructed view of the outside world. Tu Xiaodao sat beside the monitors, a bowl of dumplings in hand, observing the footage. Meanwhile, Jiang Xinyi stood before the colossal screen, auditing the external defense systems. The Nine Heavens mystical maiden tattoo on her body had fully recovered. Her cold, ethereal temperament now carried an indescribable edge of sharpness. At that exact moment, a push notification for trending local searches appeared on my phone. Xu Rui had started another live stream. In the frame, Xu Rui was hosting an extravagant party within his villa in the city center. Beneath the crystal chandeliers, amidst champagne towers, music, and beautiful companions, the display of decadence from the second-generation wealthy heir filled the stream. I glanced at the time. Less than an hour remained until the arrival of the blood moon. Xu Rui held Zhao Yuqing, laughing recklessly before the camera. My friends, do you see this? That madman Qin Lie must be hiding in some air raid shelter deep within the desolate mountains right now, selling his assets, hoarding rice, buying pork, and even dragging Jiang Xinyi along to get a tattoo. He doesn't truly believe he can wait out the end of the world, does he? Ha ha. Zhao Yuqing nestled into his chest, laughing until she trembled. Young Master Xu, say no more. I truly wish to see how Qin Lie will face the aftermath tomorrow. Xu Rui swirled the red wine in his glass, his laughter growing increasingly arrogant. If nothing happens tonight, tomorrow, I shall lead men into the mountains to shatter that pathetic bunker of his, and then personally have him committed to an asylum. In the live stream, a frenzy of insults and mockery reached a fever pitch. Meanwhile, within the Blackrock base, there was silence, save for the low, steady rumble of the power core. I lifted my wrist to check the time. 23:59. With only 10 seconds remaining before the descent of the blood moon, the world outside remained immersed in hedonistic revelry. Inside the obsidian base, however, the silence was so profound that only the low, rhythmic hum of the energy core could be heard. 10 seconds later, I laid down my knife and fork. The countdown reached 0. Accompanied by a deep, resonant thrum that seemed to echo from the dawn of time, the entire planet of Blue Star trembled violently. The arrogant laughter of Xu Rui within the live-stream broadcast fell abruptly silent, for through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his villa, the radiant, clear moon in the night sky, in that very instant, had transformed into an eerie, blood-red hue, resembling a weeping eye staring coldly down upon the mortal realm. Immediately afterward, a dense, impenetrable black mist erupted from beneath the earth, instantly enshrouding the entire city of Jiangzhou. Good heavens, what in the world is that? The moon. Why has the moon truly turned blood red? In the live stream, Xu Rui shrieked in terror, oblivious to the wineglass that shattered upon the floor beside him. Suddenly, from within the screen, the purebred poodle that Zhao Yuqing was clutching began to emit a growl that sent chills down the spine. Under the horrified gaze of hundreds of thousands of viewers, the poodle's body began to swell like a balloon being pumped to its limit, expanding violently as black bone spurs erupted from its flesh, its eyes turning bloodshot, its mouth filled with razor-sharp fangs. The mutated creature lunged viciously at Yuqing, its sharp claws tearing through her shoulder and knocking her to the ground. The livestream camera shook violently. the piercing screams tearing through the ears of every spectator. "Young Master Shu, save me!" Zhao Yuqing's face turned deathly pale. She reached out desperately towards Shu Rui, but he, already paralyzed by soul-shattering fear, hissed, "Get away from me! Don't come any closer!" He scrambled back in a panic, even kicking away Zhao Yuqing's outstretched hand, and fled toward the second floor. Zhao Yuqing collapsed onto the floor, the fabric on her shoulder stained crimson, her entire body trembling. "Save me!" But in response, there was only the retreating back of Shu Rui as he fled in disgrace. The mutated poodle growled, pressing its advance, its blood-red eyes locked onto her. Within the livestream chat, a frantic torrent of messages flooded the screen. "Someone help her! Why did Shu Rui flee all by himself? He claimed to love her moments ago, and now he abandons her without a second thought. It is over. She is certain to die." The glimmer of hope in Zhao Yuqing's eyes extinguished, replaced by a deep, hollow resentment and bitter unwillingness to accept her fate. The very moment the monster lunged downward, the red lycoris flower at her waist suddenly emitted a sinister crimson light. Ethereal petals gently bloomed beneath her, while a cold, cloying floral scent permeated the air. The movements of the mutated poodle suddenly ground to a halt. It seemed to perceive a sense of extreme danger. A flicker of dread appeared within its blood-red eyes. Zhao Yuqing slowly raised her head. Deep within her pupils, the reflection of a sea of brilliant, blooming red flowers emerged, yet they carried an indescribable coldness. "Why did even you abandon me?" Shu Rui, having just reached the top of the stairs, froze upon hearing these words. He turned back, only to see countless lycoris flowers swirling around Zhao Yuqing, dancing without the presence of wind. Those petals, light as mist, slowly bound the limbs of the mutated poodle. The monster, which had been incredibly ferocious just moments before, now seemed trapped in a nightmare, lying prone on the ground and trembling uncontrollably. Zhao Yuqing braced her hand against the wall and slowly stood up. The wound on her shoulder was now encased in crimson patterns, and a strange, eerie smile graced her pale face. At that exact moment, the livestream chat erupted in chaos. "Good heavens, she has awakened. Flowers are blooming upon her body. What kind of supernatural ability is this? This is truly bizarre." In the next second, the screen suddenly turned black. The livestream had been interrupted. I stared at the dark phone screen, the corners of my mouth curling into a cold smile. The lycoris of the yellow springs, where the flower blooms, the path home vanishes. In this lifetime, Zhao Yuqing has certainly chosen a fitting resting place for herself. Brother Lie, the world has descended into total chaos. Xu Xiaodao stared at the footage captured by the city's surveillance cameras, his voice trembling. "Do not look outside any longer. Steady your heart and mind." I spun around and let out a sharp shout, for at that moment, the energy of the blood moon had pierced through hundreds of meters of strata, descending upon us. Xu Xiaodao and Jiang Xinyi let out simultaneous groans of agony as the blood moon energy, akin to boiling magma, surged madly into their bodies. On Xu Xiaodao's left arm, the tattoo of the great deity Nezha erupted with scorching. On his right hand, the third eye of the Erlang Shen manifested, erupting with a piercing golden light. Behind Jiang Xinyi, the Nine Heavens' mysterious maiden totem transformed into a sacred, drizzling rain, lifting her body into the air. Her natural, cold demeanor became infinitely divine and inviolable in this moment. They have awakened, yet the blood moon energy that I must bear is 10, perhaps 100 times greater than theirs. Boom! I ripped the coat from my body in a violent motion. The Pangu tattoo on my chest instantly erupted with a blinding, dark, golden light. A vast, primordial power, seemingly capable of crushing the ages, absolutely dominant, exploded violently with me at its center. Immediately afterward, a tearing pain erupted from my back. 9 low, deep dragon roars echoed simultaneously through the depths of the bunker. The 9 dragons pulling the coffin totem on my back, fueled by the infusion of blood moon energy, had completely awakened. 9 pitch-black dragon shadows slowly emerged from behind me. Their massive, razor-sharp scales and blood-red eyes opened in unison. They dragged an ancient, black coffin that hovered behind my back. On that black coffin, the blood-red chains pulled taut with every passing second. An indescribable, forbidden pressure instantly swept through the entire underground fortress. The complexion of Xu Xiaodao paled slightly. He retreated several steps, and even the Nine Heavens' mysterious maiden manifestation behind Jiang Xinyi trembled. It seemed to instinctively sense a threat. The Donghuang Taiyi totem on my left leg ignited with true solar fire, capable of burning the 8 wildlands to ash. The great sage equaling heaven totem on my right leg erupted with soaring fighting intent, a battle body that remains impervious to all laws. The 4 supreme manifestations awakened at this very moment, but I quickly had to forcibly suppress the conflict between them. The 4 great forbidden totems are too powerful. In my current state, I cannot unleash them all simultaneously without paying a heavy price. Pangu governs strength, while the 9 dragons pulling the coffin governs suppression and concealment. Donghuang governs flames, and Qiqin governs the battle body. Each time I use them, I can only choose one. At this precise moment, violent impacts echoed from the titanium alloy door at the outer perimeter of the bunker. On the monitoring screen, mutated wild boars and wolves from the deep mountains were tracking the scent of the living, crazily ramming against the door. Brother Lie, the mountain beasts have mutated. In his hands, Xu Xiaodao gripped the three-pointed double-edged spear, condensed from the manifestation of Erlang Shen. Fighting spirit surged intensely in his eyes. I cracked my neck, my bones echoing like rolling thunder. Let's head out and stretch our muscles. I want to see if these so-called apocalyptic beasts are qualified to serve as appetizers for our wine. Outside the air raid shelter, a dense, dark fog shrouded the area, where dozens of mutated beasts were slamming frantically against the titanium alloy walls. Leading the charge was a mutated boar king, over 3 meters in length, its entire body covered in black scales, each collision causing the very ground to tremble. The auxiliary door of the shelter slowly creaked open. Stripped to the waist, I stepped out, followed closely by Tu Tu Dao and Jiang Tamhua. Upon catching the scent of fresh flesh and blood, the pack of mutated beasts instantly ceased their assault. They turned in unison, their crimson, bloodshot eyes locking firmly onto us. Roar! The mutated boar king let out a deafening howl. It galloped forward, all 4 hooves pounding the earth as it charged toward me like a heavy armored tank. Brother Liet, be careful. That is a peak Tier 1 mutated beast. Tu Tu Dao instinctively started to charge forward, but I signaled for him to retreat. I stood my ground, calm and unmoving. Just as the boar king's tusks, sharp as spears, were about to pierce my chest, I moved. No unnecessary flourishes, no wasted motion. I raised my right hand, curling my 5 fingers into a fist, channeling the Pangu strength. As I whispered the incantation in my heart, the Pangu totem on my chest ignited with a deep, golden light. A shadowy projection of an ancient giant coalesced around my fist as I threw a single, decisive punch. Boom! The air, compressed to its limit by the sheer force, let out a piercing, thunderous sonic boom. My fist connected squarely with the skull of the mutated boar king. A deep, muffled thud echoed out as a tyrannical surge of hidden energy bypassed its hardened cranium, instantly obliterating all signs of life within. The massive mutated boar king, weighing several tons, could not even muster a single cry of agony. Its gargantuan body collapsed at my feet like a pile of soft mud. A single blow had annihilated a peak Tier 1 beast king. Immediately following this, 9 low, resonant dragon roars echoed behind me as the phantom of the 9 dragons dragging a coffin manifested. 9 black dragons unfurled, their eyes glowing with a malevolent crimson light, pulling that ancient, obsidian coffin along, hovering suspended in the air. The 9 dragons suppressing all beneath them. As my voice trailed off, rumble! The phantom of the black coffin trembled slightly, unleashing a forbidden pressure that felt as if it had risen from the deepest abyss, instantly blanketing the entire forest. Those low-tier mutated beasts didn't even have the chance to resist. They were crushed directly into the earth. The sound of cracking bones filled the air as their bodies succumbed to the overwhelming pressure. In just 10 short seconds, the entire pack of mutated beasts had been completely eradicated. Xu Xiaodao stared in absolute disbelief, frozen to the spot. Brother Lie, your power is truly overwhelming. Jiang Kanyi stood behind me, a flicker of genuine shock crossing her cold, clear eyes. I offered no explanation, simply stepping toward the mutated boar king and splitting its skull with a single motion of my hand. A crystal, roughly the size of a thumb and pulsing with a faint crimson light, appeared in my palm. The most stable and valuable currency in this apocalypse, a spirit core. The corners of my mouth curled upward. My first trophy of the apocalypse had been claimed. I tucked the spirit core into my natal space. As the core entered the space, I could clearly feel the natal dimension tremble. Although the expansion was minuscule, it had undeniably grown. In my past life, humanity quickly discovered that spirit cores could not only enhance the strength of awakened ones, but also fortify spatial dimensions, weapon armaments, and dharma images. By the later stages of the apocalypse, they had completely replaced gold and fiat currency, becoming the sole resource for trade. I looked towards Xu Xiaodao, telling him not to let the other mutated beasts, cores, go to waste, as they could be stored away once purified. Xu Xiaodao's spirit was instantly lifted. Understood. Just then, the sound of chaotic footsteps and desperate cries for help echoed from the mountain path not far away. Help! Save us! A dozen disheveled men stumbled and fell, scrambling toward the air raid shelter. Behind them, several bloodblade mantises, each the size of a leopard, were in hot pursuit. I narrowed my eyes, recognizing the man leading the group. Fat Liu, the construction contractor formerly responsible for the outer perimeter of the Blackstone base. In my past life, these men had kicked me while I was down, feeding me to the beasts, just to buy themselves more time. Boss Chen, young master, please save us. Quickly, let us hide inside. We are all from Jiangju. You cannot just stand by and watch us die. I stood in place, watching him with a cold, detached gaze. Stand by and watch you die? A sharp, chilling light flashed through my eyes. When you were kicking me while I was down in my past life, why didn't you consider that we were all from Jiangzhou? Fat Liu was stunned. He naturally could not understand what I was referring to. That was not the gaze of one seeking to rescue. It was the gaze one directs toward a corpse. I slowly raised my right hand. My fallout shelter has no room for refuse. As the words left my lips, I snapped my fingers. The outer titanium alloy walls of the shelter instantly erupted with a terrifying, high-voltage electrical current. The blood-blade mantises that lunged forward were immediately repelled by the 10 million-volt surge. Fatty Liu collapsed to the ground in terror. Young Master Qin, I was wrong. I was truly wrong. I did not deign to look at him again. I would not slaughter the innocent, but I would not save an enemy, and the wicked must certainly be put to death. I turned and walked into the shelter. The heavy titanium alloy door ceiling shut behind me. The desperate, shrill screams outside were swiftly swallowed by the black fog. On the third day after the arrival of the blood moon, the outside world had completely transformed into a living purgatory. The city center was littered everywhere with wrecked vehicles and piles of debris. Mutant stray cats and dogs, grown to the size of wildebeests, prowled the streets in packs, hunting the remaining survivors. Yet, inside the Blackstone fallout shelter, the savory aroma of beef tallow from a hot pot wafted through the air. Xu Xiaodao ate until his lips were slick with grease. Brother Lie, if every day of the apocalypse could pass like this, I feel it wouldn't be so unbearable. Jiang Xinyi shot him a glance. Why don't you try stepping outside? Xu Xiaodao immediately fell silent. I picked up a glass of ice-cold beer, took a sip, and leaned back into the sofa. At that precise moment, a piercing siren abruptly sounded. Beep, beep, beep. Warning, the external perimeter has detected a massive heat signature approaching. I casually tapped the screen to activate the massive surveillance display, only to see that on the mountain road 1 kilometer from the shelter, a dark, swirling mass of people was surging toward this location, numbering at least 500 or 600. These individuals clutched butcher knives and steel pipes, while no small number of them carried automatic rifles. Leading them was a bald man, his upper body bare, his face filled with malice, his torso adorned with a vivid tattoo of a blood-red warhorse that looked all too real. The leader of the Green Dragon Gang, Long Wu. In my previous life, this Long Wu had used his S-grade blood python totem to wreak havoc during the early stages of the apocalypse. I never expected that in this life, he would dare to set his sights on me. On the surveillance monitor, Long Wu shouldered his machete, bellowing in a rage toward the main gate. Listen here, you coward. I know you've been hoarding supplies for lifetimes. Open the gate now and hand over all your resources and women. I am in a good mood, so I might grant you a way to survive. Otherwise, I will flatten this pathetic turtle shell of yours today. These wretched dogs actually dared to target Jiang Xinyi. I offered a cold smile. Do not be so hasty. Having spent tens of millions to install this defense system, it is only right that I hear it put to use. Outside the fallout shelter, Long Wu waited for a long while, and seeing that there was no response from within, he immediately flew into a fit of fury. You refuse the toast only to drink the forfeit? You want to suffer? Fire! Blast this damn door to pieces for me. 3 rocket-propelled grenades whistled through the air, trailing fire as they slammed into the heavy gate. Boom! 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 The violent explosions echoed throughout the night sky. The thugs of the Green Dragon Society erupted in triumphant laughter. Blown to bits, I assume? Ha ha! Doomsday Fortress, indeed. In front of our brother Long, it is nothing more than scrap metal. However, as the dust and smoke dissipated, the smiles on their faces froze. The silver-gray titanium alloy gate stood immovable. There was not even a visible dent on its surface. Long Wu's expression turned grim. Keep firing! At that very moment, the armored plating atop the wall suddenly slid apart with a rhythmic, mechanical clatter. 12 cold, 6-barreled Gatling guns emerged from their hidden compartments, the pitch-black barrels coldly locked onto the densely packed crowd below. In the surveillance room, I raised my glass and spoke with indifference. Warning, first notification, as the external loudspeakers blared. This is the Blackstone base. This is private territory. Depart immediately, or face the consequences. Ha ha! Private territory. I am the law here. Charge them! I set my glass down. Open fire. The next second, a deafening rat-tat-tat-tat erupted. The 12 Gatling guns opened fire in unison, raining high-caliber, armor-piercing rounds that wove a storm of steel across the sky. The mountain path was instantly illuminated by the flash of gunfire. The thugs of the Green Dragon Society fell in waves. Within a mere half-minute, the area outside the fallout shelter was filled with nothing but wretched screams echoing through the night. Over 200 thugs from the criminal syndicate had lost their ability to fight, while the remaining few scrambled backward in terror, desperate to flee. I sat in the surveillance room, my expression devoid of emotion. In this apocalypse, there are some who are simply beyond salvation. Cease fire. I pressed the stop button. The Green Dragon Society, which had originally possessed 500 men outside the bomb shelter, was now reduced to less than half its number. Damn it all, I will skin you alive. Long Wu stood up, his body drenched in blood, a thick layer of blood-colored scales covering his skin. As an awakened being of the blood python class, his vitality and defensive power were immense, making it nearly impossible for conventional firepower to end his life. Those who aren't awakened, start digging the tunnels. I swear if we don't slaughter those inside today, I am no longer a man. The underlings, with mutated mountain-piercing tattoos, immediately began to dig into the ground with crazed intensity. I watched the surveillance monitor coldly. They truly have no concept of death. I stood up abruptly. Zhao Dao, keep watch over the shelter. I am going out to sweep away this filth. The titanium alloy door slowly slid open, and I stepped out of the shelter, standing alone against the world. Long Wu let out a sinister laugh. So, you've finally decided to come out and meet your end? Brothers, charge! The remaining 200 thugs, seeing that I was alone, suddenly regained their courage and rushed forward, brandishing their weapons. I stood my ground and raised my left leg. The totem of Donghuang Taiyi on my left leg erupted with a blinding dark gold radiance, a terrifying heat, as if capable of incinerating the 8 wildernesses and melting all things, surged outward with me at its center. A thunderous roar echoed through the air. Solar true fire. I stomped my foot hard against the earth. Boom! A golden sea of fire surged forward with the power to level mountains and overturn the seas. The dozens of thugs who had rushed to the front the moment they made contact with the golden flames were instantly blown backward. The ground scorched black, and their steel weapons melted into liquid in an instant. The intense heat forced the rest of them to retreat in a panic. They didn't even have the qualification to approach me. With a single strike, the remaining 200 thugs were utterly shattered. Only Long Wu remained, standing alone in the center of the scene. His legs went limp, and with a heavy thud, he collapsed to his knees. Monster. What kind of monster are you? I took a step, and then another. Do you know fear now? It is too late. Long Wu knelt on the ground, watching me approach step by step, his psychological defenses completely shattered. Impossible! I am an S-rank awakener. There is no way I could lose to you. A glint of maniacal cruelty flashed in his eyes. He suddenly bit his tongue, spraying a mouthful of essence blood onto the blood python tattoo on his chest. Hiss! Accompanied by a roar that was not human, Long Wu's body began to undergo a violent transformation. His bones elongated with agonizing force, and his skin was enveloped in scales, his entire form shifting into a giant blood python, over 20 meters in length, thick as a massive water vat. My totem is fully awakened. I shall devour you whole. The blood python opened a maw vast enough to swallow a car, aggressively lunging toward me. The pungent stench of blood assaulted my senses, and the surrounding earth and debris were dragged into its gaping throat. What use is mere size? I let out a mocking laugh and stomped my right foot forward. The great sage equaling heaven totem on my right leg erupted with golden radiance, and a terrifying, savage will to battle surged upward, suppressing the heavens and the earth. The next second, my body was covered in a brilliant golden glow, my bones rang out like thunder, and my life force roared like a dragon. A phantom of the great sage, clad in golden battle armor and wearing the phoenix-winged purple-gold crown, slowly materialized behind me. The moment those golden eyes opened, it seemed as if even the dark mist shrouding the sky was torn asunder. As the blood python lunged to kill, I did not retreat but advanced, shooting into the sky like a cannonball. Thud! I stomped my foot onto the python's lower jaw, forcibly driving its colossal head back into the ground. The blood python let out a screech of agony, its massive body thrashing wildly, attempting to fling me off, but I stood firmly atop its head, my feet as if rooted into a mountain, unmoving. The enraged blood python whipped its giant tail across the terrain. The force swept away all obstacles, shattering every stone and tree in its path. I raised my right hand, and the great sage phantom behind me mirrored the motion. In the void, a staff ignited with golden battle intent began to condense. On the staff's surface, ancient patterns lit up, inch by inch, forming the Ruyi Jingu Bang. As my fingers gripped the staff, an indescribable, violent battle intent surged through my entire being. Get down! I swept the staff in a wide arc. Boom! The phantom staff collided violently with the blood python's giant tail. The air detonated. A shockwave, akin to a violent tempest, swept across the forest. The blood python's colossal tail, which possessed the strength to crush armored vehicles, was shattered and sent recoiling under the force of this single strike. Within the eyes of the blood python, the transformed state of Long Wu, a flicker of genuine terror finally emerged. Impossible! I am an S-rank blood python. By what right do you possess the power to suppress me? I stood atop its head, peering down from above with an icy gaze. Because the S-rank you boast of is nothing but triviality before a forbidden totem. As my words trailed off, I gripped the Ruyi Jingu Bang with both hands and swung it high. The phantom of the great sage equaling heaven manifest behind me, suddenly expanding in that very moment. 10 meters, 30 meters, 50 meters. Eventually manifesting as a golden war avatar that stood between heaven and earth. It stood upon black bones, the blood moon crowning its head, and the Ruyi Jingu Bang in its grasp became like a pillar supporting the heavens, bearing a terrifying might capable of crushing mountains and rivers. The blow was aimed directly at the blood python's vital 7-inch mark. It descended with merciless fury, a strike of divine combat to suppress demons. Boom! As this strike connected, the entire forest seemed to jolt violently. The ground fractured, sending stone and debris scattering in all directions. The blood python's gargantuan body was driven deep into the earth. The scales covering its vital 7-inch point shattered into pieces. The formidable power of the strike surged through its skeletal structure, piercing inward and annihilating every trace of life force within its body. The blood python's pupils dilated uncontrollably, its massive frame spasmed a few times, and finally it went completely rigid. The black mist that had shrouded the mountain was swept away by the mere aftermath of that strike. I retracted the Ruyi Jingu Bang, and the phantom descended firmly back to earth. The great sage equaling heaven avatar behind me dissipated into thin air. Only the totem on my right leg remained, flickering with a faint, golden radiance. Long Wu, who had awakened an S-rank power, was slain with a single blow. Using my hand as a blade, I sliced open the blood python's skull and retrieved a core from within, which emanated a deep, crimson light. A core condensed from an S-rank totem would, at the very least, suffice for my needs. I stored the core within my innate spatial domain and turned, walking back toward the air raid shelter. Behind me lay a trail of broken soldiers and defeated foes. None dared to raise their heads to look at me again. I gathered several hundred cores across the battlefield. Though most were of low rank, the sheer volume was impossible to overlook. As a vast surge of energy from the cores poured into my innate spatial domain, I could clearly sense the area of that space expanding. The origin power within my body also grew increasingly abundant. It was a realization that left me both astonished and profoundly satisfied. As my strength increased, the 9 dragons pulling the coffin totem manifesting behind me became even more tangible. Among the 9 blood-red chains binding that ancient black coffin, the first one had begun to show signs of loosening. I closed my eyes, sensing the gray information transmitted by the 9 dragons pulling the coffin. The 9 dragons pulling the coffin is not merely a suppression-type totem. Its true terror lies in its ability to devour. Devouring the spirit cores of exotic beasts. Devouring the totem remnants of fallen enemies. Devouring every source of energy that can be converted. And then channeling that power back into me. It reinforces my physical body, my origin, and my natal space. This ability is known as the coffin devouring. However, the first chain has not yet been fully unraveled. To truly unlock the coffin devouring, it requires a higher grade spirit core to act as the key, at the very least, a spirit core from a level 5 exotic beast. A level 5 spirit core, you say? I opened my eyes, the corners of my mouth curving slightly upward. In my previous life, shortly after the red moon descended, a level 5 beast king did indeed appear in the East Sea region. That abyssal sea ancient dragon nearly obliterated the entire city of Jiangju. In this life, its spirit core belongs to me. Content, I turned and headed into the shelter. The heavy door slowly creaked shut, completely sealing off the slaughter of the outside world. Xu Xiaodao greeted me, her eyes brimming with fervent admiration. Brother Lai, your dominance is truly overwhelming. Jiang Xinyi handed me a warm towel, her beautiful eyes shimmering with unusual light. You have worked hard. The hot pot is still warm. I wiped my hands, sat back down on the sofa, and picked up a slice of beef. At that same moment, in the capital, 500 meters beneath the Supreme Military Command Center, the atmosphere was suffocatingly tense. Report. Defensive line number 3 in the Eastern War Zone has collapsed. 3 level 4 exotic beasts have broken through the blockade. Report. Abnormal tsunamis have appeared in the southern coastal region. There is suspicion of a deep-sea behemoth making landfall. Report. Conventional weapons have shown a sharp decline in effectiveness against exotic beasts level 3 and above. Our awakened military units have suffered heavy casualties. Each piece of dire news strikes the heart of everyone present like a heavy sledgehammer. The commander, standing before the massive electronic table, closed his eyes in agony. He was the supreme Commander Long. The Crimson Moon descended only 3 days ago. Yet the modern civilization that humanity once took such pride in has already been largely decimated. Even the military, when faced with those terrifying mutated behemoths, is proving increasingly powerless. Are the heavens truly intent on our annihilation? It was at this very moment that the intelligence surveillance officer suddenly sprang to his feet. Commander-in-Chief, you must look at the footage the stealth drone has just transmitted. On the large screen, the image rapidly magnified, revealing a fortress deep within the mountains, fortified by thick titanium alloy walls. Outside the fortress gates, the forest had been torn apart by flames and gunfire, leaving a barren wasteland. Everywhere lay vehicles and weaponry abandoned by the fleeing mobsters of the Azure Dragon Society. Yet at the center of the screen, a shirtless young man stood alone on the mountain path outside the fortress. Before him loomed a terrifying blood python, over 20 meters long and as thick as a water vat. The creature's entire body was covered in dark red scales, its giant serpentine eyes burning with raw, frenzied malice. Its massive form lay coiled amidst the forest, appearing like a monster crawled forth from the abyss. My God, it is an S-class mutated beast. The intelligence officer gasped. Commander-in-Chief, should we mobilize the nearby troops to provide support? It is too late. The distance is too great. By the time our men arrive, the battle will have long since concluded. However, the following second, the entire command center fell into a deathly silence. On the screen, the young man's right leg erupted with a brilliant, golden light, and a defiant, majestic golden manifestation of a warrior appeared behind him. That manifestation was clad in purple gold armor, adorned with a phoenix-winged crown, clutching a golden long staff that seemed to suppress the very void. Even through the drone's feed, everyone could feel a storm of battle intent, sweeping across the heavens and the earth. What kind of totem is that? The intelligence officer muttered. But no one answered, for the battle on the screen had entered its most earth-shattering moment. The young man lunged forward in a single stride toward the blood python, his hands gripping the golden long staff. The golden warrior manifestation behind him surged in size accordingly. 10 meters, 30 meters, 50 meters, finally transforming into a terrifying presence, nearly as tall as the mountain itself. In the next heartbeat, the golden long staff struck down with devastating force toward the python's vital point. Boom! Even through the barrier of the screen, everyone could see the entire mountain range shudder violently. The ground split open, and rubble erupted into the sky. That S-rank blood python, whose defenses could withstand even heavy firepower, had been hammered deep into the earth with a single strike. The massive body of the blood python convulsed violently, before finally going limp in death. The entire command center fell into a deathly silence. It took several seconds before someone managed to swallow hard, a single blow to eradicate an S-rank beast. How could this be possible? Just what rank of awakened individual is he? The target's identity has been identified. Qin Lie, 22 years old, formerly the heir to the Qin Corporation in Jiangzhou City. 20 days before the Red Moon descended, he suddenly liquidated all his assets, purchased the Blackstone base in the outskirts of Jiangzhou City, and stockpiled a massive quantity of supplies. During that same period, he took 2 companions to an underground tattoo parlor, sequestering themselves for 7 consecutive days to complete extensive full-body tattoos. 1 day before the Red Moon descended, he officially relocated to the Blackstone base. The command center once again fell into silence. Everyone realized the gravity of the situation. This young man named Qin Lie seemed to have known about the impending apocalypse long in advance. Continue the investigation into the backgrounds of the 2 people by his side. Furthermore, immediately categorize Qin Lie as a top-tier strategic target and dispatch a special envoy to Jiangzhou. On the morning of the 2nd day after annihilating the Green Dragon Society, I was lying in the swimming pool, regulating the temperature of the shelter while closing my eyes to rest, absorbing the massive energy from the spirit core within my body. Beep, beep. A piercing alarm once again shattered the tranquility. Brother Lie, there are more people with a death wish at our doorstep. Xu Xiaodao hurried to the edge of the pool and handed me the surveillance tablet. There aren't many this time, only a few dozen, but the one leading them seems to be an old acquaintance. I took the tablet, glanced at the surveillance monitor, and the corners of my mouth curled into a cold smirk. On the screen, a few dozen thugs in tattered clothing, wielding crude weapons, were making their way up the mountain road toward the shelter. The man walking at the front, although his face was stained with grime and his appearance was gaunt and disheveled, I recognized him at a single glance. The son of the wealthiest man in Jiangzhou, my sworn enemy from my past life, Shu Rui. On the day the Red Moon descended, he was live-streaming from his villa in the city center, and was so terrified by a mutated stray dog that he wet his pants. Unexpectedly, he survived the early stages of the apocalypse, miraculously, by relying on the 3-headed hellhound tattoo on his back. Over these past few days, the city center has completely transformed into a paradise for mutated beasts. His hillside villa has been razed to the ground. He was forced to sacrifice dozens of his own bodyguards just to flee frantically across the distance. He knows very well that the only place in all of Jiangzhou that is absolutely safe is my deep mountain bunker. And so, like a rabid dog, he began to howl at the top of his lungs. Qin Lie, I know you are in there. Shu Rui walked to a position 50 meters from the main gate, pointing directly at the surveillance camera and roaring furiously. Ha ha! Do you think hiding inside this turtle shell makes you safe? Damn it, I have awakened the power of the hellhound. I am a powerhouse now. Today, I will shatter this door of yours and plunder every bit of your supplies. Watching Shu Rui screaming like a clown on the monitor, I stood up from the swimming pool and casually grabbed a towel to dry myself. Has attaining a mere grade A rank made him this arrogant? Brother Lie, let me go deal with him. No need. The grievances of the past life must be ended by my own hands. Open the door. Clack. The heavy titanium alloy gate slowly swung open. I stepped out of the bunker, walking forward alone. Qin Lie, you finally dare to show your face? Do you truly think you can plunder my supplies with these few dozen pathetic insects you brought with you? I glanced at the mob of thugs shaking with fear behind him, my expression filled with nothing but disdain. Dealing with you alone is more than enough. Qin Lie, look at who I have brought for you. The crowd slowly parted to both sides. From within the black mist, a figure stepped out, her movements sluggish and weary. She was wearing a red dress stained with patches of blood, her skin deathly pale, her eyebrows and eyes as delicate as ever. Only now, those eyes held a strange, eerie crimson glow. Where her waist was exposed, a blood-colored spider lily tattoo was slowly blossoming. Translucent red flower petals materialized. The scent of flowers spread, seductive to the point that it made one's skin crawl. Zhao Yuqing. She had not perished. Not only did she survive, but she had also awakened the A-rank totem, the underworld equinox flower. The mobs surrounding her gazed at her, their eyes gradually glazing over with fascination, and some even knelt upon the ground, walking toward her as if their souls had been stolen. Zhao Yuqing gently raised her hand, a blood-colored floral vine trailing from her fingertips and coiling tightly around the throat of one of the marauders. Far from struggling, the man wore a look of infatuated bliss. The very next moment, his complexion rapidly turned ash-gray, his entire body appearing as if drained of all vitality, and an equinox flower slowly bloomed from the center of his chest. Zhao Yuqing narrowed her eyes in satisfaction. The pallor of her face had regained a hint of vitality. Qin Lie, you did not expect this, did you? I have also awakened. Shu Rui stood behind her, his face twisted in a sinister grin. Qin Lie, are you not usually so arrogant? Zhao Yuqing is now an A-rank psychic awakener. Her equinox floral scent is powerful enough to control over a dozen awakened beings. I wish to see if you can still bring yourself to strike when faced with the woman you once loved. Zhao Yuqing chuckled softly and began walking toward me. With every step she took, a blood-red equinox flower bloomed beneath her feet. The floral fragrance in the air grew increasingly heavy. In my daze, the surrounding black ruins began to fade. The world before my eyes shifted, and I found myself returned to my past life. A surge of beasts roamed, and a blood moon hung in the sky. My body was covered in gore as I collapsed amidst the wreckage. A mutated three-headed hound approached me step by step, while Zhao Yuqing knelt by my side, weeping like rain against pear blossoms. Qin Lie, I was wrong. In our past life, I should never have abandoned you. I should never have trusted Shu Rui. If only we could start over, I would certainly remain by your side. She reached out to touch my face, her voice gentle and heavy with memories that tore at the heart. Qin Lie, will you not forgive me? I stared at her in silence, and the next second, I burst into laughter. Zhao Yuqing, your illusion is far too artificial. The expression of the Zhao Yuqing who was kneeling and weeping before me suddenly stiffened. I took a single step forward, and the phantom of the 9 dragons dragging a coffin suddenly manifested behind me. 9 pitch-black dragon forms simultaneously opened their crimson dragon eyes. That ancient black coffin drifted silently in the space behind me. Upon the black coffin, crimson iron chains trembled slightly, and a vast, forbidden pressure descended from the heavens. The surrounding debris, the beast tide, the bloody corpses, and even the weeping Zhao Yuqing, everything shattered into pieces like a fractured mirror. Reality returned once more. Zhao Yuqing's face turned deathly pale, and she retreated abruptly, a trail of blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. The phantom of the other shore flower behind her trembled violently, its petals scattering and withering away. Impossible. She stared at me, unable to fathom what she was seeing. It cannot be. My nether flower fragrance is capable of drawing out the deepest obsessions hidden within a person's heart. So how could you possibly show no reaction at all? Obsession, you say? Do you truly believe you are worthy of becoming my obsession? The blood drained from Zhao Yuqing's face in an instant. These words carried more lethality than any physical strike. She bit her lip, a flicker of panic rising in her eyes. No, Qin Lie. You clearly loved me in the past. You are only still harboring hatred for me, aren't you? Her expression shifted instantly. She looked at me with tear-filled eyes, feigning a pitiful and sorrowful appearance. I admit I was wrong before, but at that time, I had no idea the apocalypse was coming. I truly thought you had lost your mind. Qin Lie, as long as you let me into the shelter, I can return to your side once again. I am an A-grade awakened now. I can be of assistance. I can help you control those survivors. I can be useful to you. Zhao Yuqing, you treacherous wretch. Didn't you just say a moment ago that you wanted to help me kill him? Zhao Yuqing turned her head abruptly, her voice shrill. Shu Rui, hold your tongue. If it weren't for you humiliating Qin Lie during the live broadcast, if it weren't for you constantly dragging me along to mock him, how could I have ended up like this? When you fled, did you even look back at me once? By what right do you have to speak to me? Shu Rui was so furious that his entire body trembled. I watched the two of them tearing each other apart, feeling only a profound sense of tedium. To think that in my past life, I was killed by these two. It is truly laughable. Qin Lie, I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. Can you give me one more chance? She reached out, attempting to grasp my wrist, but before she could make contact, an invisible pressure surged forth, sending her flying. I looked down at her from above, my voice calm. You are not truly repentant. You have merely realized that Shu Rui cannot protect you and that I am far stronger than him. Zhao Yuqing's body trembled, the tears in her eyes freezing in place. I raised my right hand. The phantom of a black coffin slowly opened behind me, and pitch-black iron chains snaked out from within. In that instant, they coiled tightly around the licorice flower totem at Zhao Yuqing's waist. The licorice flower is indeed beautiful, but it is a pity it bloomed in the wrong underworld. With those words, the chains of the black coffin suddenly tightened. Zhao Yuqing let out a harrowing, agonizing scream. The sea of blood-colored flowers behind her collapsed instantly. Countless phantoms of the licorice flower withered in midair as the totem power within her body was forcibly suppressed by the 9 dragons pulling the coffin. The alluring crimson hue in her eyes faded, quickly returning to normal, and she collapsed to the ground, as if every ounce of strength had been drained from her. My power. Qin Lie, you have sealed my power. She looked up at me, her face mask of absolute despair. Kill me if you want? Kill me? You are not even worth the effort of me striking a second time. Shu Rui watched as Zhao Yuqing's power was sealed. There was not a single trace of pity in his eyes, only malice. You useless thing. You could not even beguile a single man. Zhao Yuqing looked at him, unable to believe what she was hearing. Shu Rui, what did you just say? Shu Rui kicked the ground violently beside her, shouting in a rage. If it weren't for a jinx like you, how could I have ended up in this wretched state? The last shred of illusion in Zhao Yuqing. I watched this scene unfold, feeling only a profound sense of weariness. The apocalypse never truly changes a person. It merely unearths the filth hidden within their heart all the sooner. I slowly turned my gaze toward Shu Rui. The show is over. It is time for us to settle our debts. The savage grin on Shu Rui's face vanished completely, replaced by an unconcealable terror. He finally realized that the A-rank hellhound he took such pride in was nothing more than an insect before me. Impossible. I am an A-rank awakened. I am invincible under the heavens. Shu Rui flew into a blind frenzy, casting his head back and letting out a roar like a wild beast. His clothing exploded outward, shredded by his transformation. A ferocious, 3-headed hellhound shadow, spanning over 5 meters in length, manifested behind him, its body wreathed in sinister, dark flames. Shu Rui's own body began to swell to match the manifestation. His muscles bulged, and his hands transformed into razor-sharp lupine claws as he lunged toward me with a suffocating, sulfurous aura. Die! The center head of the beast opened its massive maw, unleashing a torrent of scorching, black flames. Facing such an attack, which appeared grand in its momentum, I could not even be bothered to dodge. To me, an A-rank is no better than a stray dog. I drew a deep breath. The terrifying vitality within my body, bolstered by the primal essence, surged and roared like a turbulent sea. I did not manifest any totems or dharma, relying solely upon the raw strength of my physical form. I pulled my right fist back, then, like a bullet fired from a chamber, drove it straight into the heart of the black flames. The terrifying pressure of my strike tore the black fire asunder from the very center. Without a shred of flourishes or wasted movement, my fist slammed directly into the arm Shu Rui held in such high regard. Crack! The sickening sound of shattering bone echoed through the air. Shu Rui's right arm snapped instantly, and the immense, unrelenting force of the blow carried through, slamming into his chest. Shu Rui vomited blood uncontrollably. His massive frame was sent flying backward like a kite with a broken string, crashing heavily into the earth. Impossible! You haven't even utilized your dharma yet. How could you be this strong? Shu Rui clutched his collapsed ribcage, his eyes finally betraying a deep, visceral fear. Because you are simply too weak. I walked toward him, step by step, looking down at him from above. Qin Lie, young Master Qin, I was wrong. I beg you, please spare me. I stared at him, my eyes devoid of even a ripple of emotion. In my past life, you cast me into the beast tide. In this life, I shall not do the same to you. A glimmer of hope flickered in Shu Rui's eyes, because that would be far too generous for you. I slowly raised my hand, and behind me, the phantom of the 9 dragons pulling a coffin manifested. The black coffin creaked open. A jet-black iron chain lunged out, instantly piercing the three-headed hellhound totem behind Shu Rui. Shu Rui let out a shrill, agonizing scream as the hellhound totem behind him struggled frantically, but it was suppressed utterly by the 9 black dragons. Crack! A fracture appeared on the surface of the totem, and the aura of ability emanating from Shu Rui receded like a retreating tide. His body rapidly withered, returning to its original form, leaving him a broken, ordinary man riddled with wounds, stripped of every ounce of power. My power? Qin Lie, return my power to me. Don't you like acting like a dog? From this day forth you are not even fit to be a dog. The mob watched as Shu Rui lost his strength, and their gazes began to shift. In this apocalypse, the weak possess no dignity, especially since Shu Rui had sacrificed countless people as bait along the way, just to preserve his own life. Now the retribution had arrived. Shrieks of agony erupted, but I did not look back. Shortly after, Shu Rui's voice vanished entirely, leaving behind only a dim, first-grade crystal core on the ground. I casually collected it into my demigod space. The nemesis from my past life who threw me into a beast tide was now so insignificant that he wasn't even worth my full effort to kill. At that very moment, a deafening roar erupted from the sky. Boom, boom, boom. A violent gale howled, dispersing the dark fog surrounding us. I looked up to see 3 dark green military attack helicopters circling above the bunker. The helicopters slowly descended, their cabin doors sliding open. 2 rows of heavily armed Special Forces soldiers leaped out in quick succession. They stood in 2 lines on either side, securing the perimeter. Moments later, a high-ranking commander, surrounded by his personal guards, marched toward me. Greetings, Mr. Qin. I am Lei Zihan. As the Deputy Commander of the Eastern District, I am here on orders from the Supreme Command to pay you a visit. Commander Lei, you have traveled a long way. With mutant beasts rampaging outside, the fact that you managed to find this place proves that the command center is still sparing no effort to maintain order. Upon hearing these words, a flash of surprise crossed Lei Zihan's eyes. He had expected an awakened being with such terrifying strength to hold a degree of disdain for the military. However, I knew clearly that in this apocalypse, the military remained the final shield for the common people. Without them holding the main battlefield, Jiangju would have collapsed even sooner. Lei Zihan took a deep breath. Mr. Qin, through our drones we witnessed your elimination of the S-rank blood python. Your strength far exceeds that of the awakened system currently recorded by our command center. The Supreme Commander wishes to establish a top-tier strategic partnership with you. We will not coerce Zhang Zhao, nor will we demand you surrender the Blackstone base. We only hope that when the Dragon Nation faces a catastrophe, you will offer your assistance within the extent of your capabilities. Very well. A glint appeared in Lei Zihan's eyes as I continued. However, I am accustomed to operating independently and am not suited for integration into the standard command structure. The Blackstone base can be considered an independent strategic partner. Your forces shall be responsible for maintaining order, evacuating survivors, and establishing defensive lines, while I shall be responsible for providing select intelligence and, when necessary, eradicating high-level, mutated beasts. By exchanging resources and sharing intelligence, our efficiency will be at its peak. I will relay Mr. Qin's proposal, exactly as stated, to the Supreme Commander. Since we are now partners, I will provide you with a piece of intelligence in advance. 3 days from now at 2 a.m., the East Sea will experience its first large-scale tide of mutated sea beasts. A level 5 deep-sea ancient dragon will lead 100,000 sea beasts to assault Jiangju City. If heavy artillery defensive lines are not prepared in advance, Jiangju City, and perhaps the entire eastern region, will suffer devastating losses. What? Lei Zihan's expression shifted violently. Cold sweat instantly soaked through the back of his uniform. He stared intensely at me, attempting to find any trace of a jest upon my face, but all he found was absolute composure. Mr. Qin, is this intelligence reliable? I would never treat the lives of 3 million people as a joke. Lei Zihan drew a sharp breath. I will report this to the Supreme Commander immediately and mobilize the entire Eastern region's forces to prepare the defenses. Furthermore, I require a shipment of heavy military industrial equipment, high-precision machine tools, specialized alloy materials, 10 sets of warship-grade automated close-in weapon systems, and a batch of individual thermobaric weapons. I am not asking for these items for free. Any intelligence regarding high-level exotic beasts will henceforth be prioritized for the military. These items are strategic assets, and I must seek authorization from Commander Long. However, I personally believe this transaction is entirely justified. Agreed. Mr. Qin, thank you for your willingness to cooperate. The military remains the final line of defense for humanity. I shall depart to deal with the monsters that you have yet to neutralize. Everyone must attend to their own duty. Mr. Qin, I will relay these words to the Supreme Commander. Watching Lei Zihan's retreating figure as he hurried to board the aircraft, My gaze darkened slightly. A 5th-rank Beast King is precisely the key needed to unlock the first seal of the 9 dragons dragging the coffin. I must, without fail, obtain the star core of the ocean-pacifying ancient dragon. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. During these 3 days, the military kept its promise. Several heavy-duty transport helicopters delivered batches of specialized machine tools. They also delivered the close-in weapon systems and thermobaric bombs that I required outside the shelter. Looking at the massive claw marks remaining on the helicopter fuselages, I knew that to escort this cargo through airspace teeming with rampant exotic beasts, the military had likely suffered the loss of many ace pilots. Regarding the remaining strategic supplies, Lei Zihan also sent word that they would be delivered in subsequent waves. I am in no rush. With the world outside turned into a battlefield, the fact that they managed the first delivery proves the military's absolute sincerity. I stored all these supplies within my demigod space, and the defensive capabilities of the shelter soared once more. 2 a.m. on the 4th day. I sat in a spacious leather chair in the surveillance room, holding a steaming cup of black coffee. Brother Lai, it's raining heavily outside. And why is the rainwater pitch black? Xu Xiaodao stared at the monitor, her brows furrowed tightly. I took a sip of coffee, my eyes deep and unfathomable. It has begun. Almost at the same moment, at the eastern coastal defense line of Jiangju City, Lei Zihan stood in the makeshift command center, staring fixedly at the dense red dots surging like a tidal wave on the radar screen. Cold sweat poured incessantly down his cheeks. Qin Lie's intelligence was accurate. The exotic beasts of the eastern sea have made landfall. Open fire! Open fire across the entire line. Under no circumstances must they breach the urban zone. Behind us lie 3 million survivors. The heavy artillery positions immediately erupted with deafening roars. Countless artillery shells trailed long tails of fire as they slammed into the coastline, illuminating the pitch-black night as if it were midday. Yet as the flares pierced the sky, every soldier on the front line was struck with despair. Across the ocean surface, hundreds of thousands of mutated sea beasts were charging forward, riding the waves. There were colossal mutated crabs the size of armored vehicles. There were amphibious mermen with bodies covered in venomous barbs, and there were swarms of sea serpents moving with blinding speed. Braving the barrage of fire, they launched a frenzied assault. In less than 10 minutes of combat, the first line of defense was completely torn asunder. Commander Lei, we can hold out no longer. The number of beasts is too overwhelming. Our defensive line has suffered a total collapse. Lei Zihan drew his sidearm from his holster. His eyes bloodshot, he broadcast to the entire army, even if we must perish to the last man, we must protect the common people today. Boom! Just as the military prepared for a final, desperate stand, the earth trembled. A terrifying pressure, impossible to describe with words, suddenly rolled in from the direction of the deep sea. Within the city of Jiangju, 3 million survivors huddled in ruins and basements, feeling a sharp pain in their chests, as if a great mountain were pressing down upon their hearts, making even the act of breathing a struggle. What is that? Lei Zhan looked up in despair at the distant night sky, only to see the dense black mist being forcibly torn apart by a pair of massive, ancient wings. A terrifying, ancient dragon, over 100 meters in length, and wreathed in the gloomy fog of the deep sea, descended slowly from the clouds. Its eyes, like 2 giant crimson lanterns, radiated the freezing breath of death. A 5th-rank Beast King, the sea-shattering ancient dragon. In the early stages of the apocalypse, a 5th-rank mutated beast was synonymous with invincibility. This was a world-ending calamity, capable of effortlessly rantalizing a city to the ground. The sea-shattering ancient dragon let out a roar that tore through the heavens, and it opened its maw, vast as an abyss. A jet-black dragon breath, dark as ink, erupted forth, slamming directly into the army's heavy artillery positions. Boom! The black flames instantly swallowed everything within 1,000 miles. The heavy artillery positions were completely paralyzed. It is over. Jiangju is finished. A sense of despair spread like a plague throughout the city of Jiangju. Countless people closed their eyes, awaiting the descent of death. Yet at this very moment, inside the Black Rock shelter, I slowly set down the cup of coffee in my hand. On the screen, the 100-meter-long ancient dragon flaunted its might within the black mist. There was no fear in my eyes. Instead, they shimmered with a brilliant, intense light. Xu Xiaodao's expression shifted. Liet, do you truly intend to go out there? That is a level 5 Beast King. Jiang Xinyi gripped my arm tightly, adding, there is no need to take such a risk. I gently patted the back of Jiang Xinyi's hand, a defiant smirk tugging at the corner of my mouth. The 9 dragons pulling my coffin are still missing a final key. I have already set my sights on the beast core of that massive lizard. I turned toward the lift and said, guard this place well, and while you are at it, brew me a cup of tea. By the time the tea is warm, I shall return. High above Jiangju City, the ancient sea-vein dragon was unleashed, spewing black, draconic breath that shattered the defensive line. Lei Zihan closed his eyes, bracing himself for the descent of death. Boom! At that very moment, a beam of light, as black as ink, erupted from the deep mountains on the outskirts of Jiangzhou, piercing straight into the heavens. This dark radiance was not cold or ominous. Instead, it carried an indescribable sense of antiquity and majesty. The thick, dark mist was forcibly torn asunder. What is that? Lei Zan's eyes snapped open. The 3 million survivors of the city, along with the remnants of the army, turned instinctively toward the direction of the black stone shelter. Under the gaze of thousands, a man with a lithe, slender frame ascended toward the sky, trailing behind the pillar of black gold light. He utilized no flight equipment, simply walking upon the void as if invisible stairs lay beneath his feet. It is Mr. Qin. It is Qin Lie. Lei Zihan trembled with overwhelming emotion as I continued my ascent, the 9-dragon coffin totem fully manifesting behind me. 9 pitch-black dragon silhouettes coiled across the sky, their bodies spanning hundreds of meters, their crimson eyes snapping open in unison. They pulled an ancient black coffin that stretched horizontally across the skyline of Jiangzhou City. On the surface of the black coffin, crimson iron chains began to vibrate slowly, releasing an aura of supreme, ancient prohibition, an inviolable pressure that swept through all of Jiangzhou like a tidal wave. Under the weight of this aura, the 100,000 mutated sea beasts rampaging below instantly let out harrowing, terrified cries, collapsing onto the ground in unison, trembling uncontrollably. It is Mr. Qin from the Black Stone Base. He has come to reinforce Jiangzhou. Countless survivors emerged from the ruins, lifting their heads, their eyes filled with the shock and awe of those who had found salvation in the face of certain death. I stood at an altitude of 1,000 meters, staring directly at the 100-meter-long ancient. Before its massive frame, I appeared as insignificant as an ant, yet the 9 dragons pulling the coffin behind me looked even more like an ancient demon than the beast itself. The ocean-calming ancient dragon sensed the provocation. Its crimson eyes glared at me, releasing a roar that shook the very heavens. It opened its cavernous maw, wide as an abyss, and a surge of black dragon breath, 10 times larger than before, descended like a falling meteorite, crashing toward me with overwhelming force. Suddenly, the Pangu totem upon my chest erupted with soaring battle intent, manifesting the Dharma image of heaven and earth as the phantom of Pangu appeared behind me. Facing the roaring torrent of black dragon breath, I did not even attempt to evade. I slowly raised my right fist, and from the Pangu Dharma image before my chest, a low rumble-like thunder echoed forth, with the power of the heaven-splitting force coiling around my fist. The next second I stepped into the void. The moment my fist collided with the black dragon breath, the sky itself seemed to be ripped asunder. The black flames were forcibly torn apart at the center by the tyrannical, heaven-splitting power, transforming into 2 roaring waves of fire that swept past my left and right. The flames rained down upon the ruins, scorching the earth into 2 blackened trenches 1,000 meters long, while I stood motionless between the 2 seas of fire. My figure did not waver in the slightest. The Pangu phantom behind me slowly raised its head, its previously faint, ethereal features becoming increasingly tangible and solid in that moment. A deep, golden divine light radiated from the Pangu tattoo on my chest, spreading all the way to the phantom behind me. "You oversized lizard, now it is my turn." As the words left my lips, the Pangu tattoo on my chest erupted with full intensity. The once ethereal Pangu Dharma image behind me suddenly surged to tens of meters in height, its muscles rippling with an ancient, desolate aura, looking like a primordial titan, stepping forth from the very depths of chaos. In its palm, a colossal axe, condensed from pure heaven-splitting power, gradually shifted from intangible to solid. On the blade of the axe, deep, golden divine runes ignited, 1 inch at a time. I slowly raised my right hand, and the Pangu Dharma image behind me mimicked the motion, lifting the giant heaven-splitting axe in perfect unison. 1 man, 1 shadow. Our movements were absolute. The ocean-calming ancient dragon seemed to sense its impending doom, and for the first time, terror flickered within its crimson eyes. It beat its ancient wings with all its might, desperate to put distance between us. But the moment it was locked in place by the Pangu Dharma image, the black space surrounding it seemed to freeze entirely. I took a single step, my voice sounding like thunder in one's ears. "Pangu splits the heavens!" My right hand suddenly swung downward. The Pangu Dharma idol behind me swung its massive heaven-splitting axe in the very same instant. A deep golden blade of light, hundreds of meters long, tore through the black bones. It was as if it sought to cleave the very night sky in 2. The abyssal dragon flapped its wings in a desperate attempt to evade, but it was already too late. The axe descended heavily upon its impenetrable bone wings. Crack! The massive skeletal wings shattered instantly. The abyssal dragon let out a piercing shriek that rattled the very air. Its colossal form lost all balance. It plummeted toward the earth like a falling meteor. I afforded it no chance to catch its breath. Stamping my foot, I transformed into a streak of deep golden light. In an instant, I appeared directly above the abyssal dragon. The Pangu Dharma idol behind me moved in perfect synchronization with my movements. My fingers curled into a tight fist, while the Pangu Dharma idol raised the massive heaven-splitting axe high above its head with both hands. The abyssal dragon struggled to lift its head, its crimson eyes brimming with terror. My voice rang out, cold and unforgiving. Crush! I threw a punch, and the heaven-splitting axe in the hands of the Pangu Dharma idol descended with devastating force. Boom! The heaven-splitting axe struck the very center of the abyssal dragon's skull. The terrifying power of creation surged along its hardened cranium, violently flooding into its body. The ground shook violently, and the outskirts of Jiangzhou City were pulverized into a massive crater dozens of meters deep. Debris erupted into the sky, blotting out the stars. The abyssal dragon's immense body was embedded deep into the basin of the crater. The light in its crimson eyes faded rapidly. The Pangu Dharma idol behind me slowly receded, the deep, golden divine radiance dissipating bit by bit. I stood at the edge of the crater. The residual glow from the Pangu tattoo on my chest had not yet vanished. The Tier 5 overlords, the abyssal dragon, had been slain. The battle had ended with such haste that not a single soul present could react in time. From the moment I summoned the Dharma idol to the suppression and slaughter of the Tier 5 Beast King, the entire process took less than 3 minutes. The black mist dissolved, and the crimson moonlight once again bathed the earth. I dispelled the Dharma heaven and earth technique, my body returning to its normal size, as I landed firmly upon the dragon's colossal head. I pressed my fingers together like a blade, slicing through its skull. From within, I extracted a Tier 5 essence core the size of a basketball. It emanated a rich, black gold luster. Sensing the vast, oceanic energy contained within the essence core, I stored it into my semi-divine space, with a sense of satisfaction. Once the Beast King was vanquished, the 100,000 sea beasts below collapsed in disarray, retreating toward the ocean like a receding tide. Jiangzhou City had been saved. Master Qin, thank you for saving the lives of the 3 million citizens of Jiangzhou. Their gratitude echoed through the night sky of Jiangzhou like a roaring mountain of voices. I stood atop the head of the ancient dragon, gripping the black gold Grade 5 spirit core in my hand. I did not revel in their thanks. Instead, I looked toward Lei Zan and said calmly, Commander Lei, there is no need for such formalities. Had the order force not held back the vanguard of the beast tide last night, Jiangzhou might not have survived long enough for me to intervene. Lei Zihan was taken aback, and I continued, this victory was not won by me alone. The soldiers who fell on the front lines also saved this city. Lei Zan's eyes reddened, and many officers behind him bowed their heads in silence. I stored the spirit core into my demigod spatial ring and commanded, proceed with the evacuation of the survivors and repair the defensive lines immediately. The retreat of the sea beasts is only temporary. The true catastrophe is yet to come. Rest assured, Master Qin, the order force will hold Jiangzhou at all costs. If any aberrant beasts of grade 5 or higher appear, inform me immediately. I shall deal with the high-level threats. Having said this, I did not linger. A flash of black gold light erupted behind me, and I transformed into a streak of radiance, returning to the Blackstone shelter. The massive gates sealed shut behind me with a thunderous boom. I returned to the surveillance room and took a sip of tea from the cup on the table. The temperature of the tea was perfect. Within the core meditation chamber at the lowest level of the Blackstone shelter, I sat cross-legged on a specially crafted cushion, holding the Grade 5 ocean-turning ancient dragon's spirit core, which pulsated with a deep, black gold luminescence. The energy contained within this spirit core was more than 100 times greater than that of the previous S-grade blood python core. Even the most powerful ability user in the military would be torn asunder should they attempt to ingest it directly. But I am different. Without a moment's hesitation, I pressed the spirit core against my chest and began to circulate the primordial power within my body. Boom! The violent, icy black energy surged through my meridians like a bursting dam, flooding my limbs and bones in an instant. Layers of black frost crystallized upon my skin, and my bones groaned and cracked under the sheer pressure of the overload. You wish to backlash against me? A dead beast of your stature is hardly worthy. I snorted coldly, and the Pangu Dharma image manifested upon my chest. The overbearing, world-shaking power instantly suppressed and crushed the black energy, then refined it into the purest form of primal essence, flowing back with feral intensity to nourish my physical body. At that same moment, the 9 dragons pulling the coffin totem upon my back began to burn with heat. The 9 black dragons appeared to be slithering slowly beneath my skin. Upon that ancient, obsidian coffin, the first crimson iron chain vibrated violently. Snap! A subtle cracking sound resonated from the depths of my soul. Immediately following, the first crimson iron chain shattered. Boom! A wave of indescribable black gold energy erupted from within the coffin. Before my eyes, a boundless, infinite void seemed to manifest, hidden within the deepest reaches of darkness. The ancient coffin cracked open slightly, and a surge of gray information flooded into my brain. 9 dragons pulling the coffin. First seal unlocked. Coffin burial devour. From this moment onward, I possess the ability to actively devour the star cores of exotic beasts. The residual energy of the beasts' carcasses, along with a portion of the totem's origin, were suppressed. This energy would be refined by the black coffin, flowing back to nourish my physical body, my demigod space, and my 4 forbidden totems. In other words, as long as I have enough prey, I can grow stronger with every battle. As the star core of the Fu Hai ancient dragon was completely refined, my physical cultivation realm broke through to the peak of the 5th level, as naturally as a river flowing into the sea, and my demigod space expanded once more. At the edges of the vast, boundless space, an expanse as black as ink suddenly appeared. It resembled a projection of the black coffin. Silent, deathly, and unfathomably deep. I had a faint premonition, as the remaining chains of the 9 dragons pulling the coffin continued to be undone. This region of darkness will become an existence even more terrifying than the demigod space itself. I slowly opened my eyes, and the bones throughout my body crackled with the thunderous roar of a storm. Coffin Burial Devourer is truly formidable. From this day forth, all exotic beasts shall be but nutrients for my growth. Early the next morning, in the underground training arena of the Blackstone base, I sat cross-legged on the alloy floor and slowly opened my eyes. After devouring the Fu Hai ancient dragon's star core, the vitality within my blood and flesh has grown several times stronger than before. The first iron chain of the 9 dragons pulling the coffin has been unsealed, and the Coffin Burial Devourer ability is fully integrated into my body. From now on, common star cores will provide increasingly limited benefits to my progression. To continue growing stronger, I must hunt exotic beasts of a higher rank. At the very least, level 4 or above. Xu Xiaodao stepped inside, her eyes burning with eagerness to prove herself. Brother Lai, you single-handedly slew a level 5 ancient dragon last night. Tanyi and I could barely contribute at all. If things continue this way, we will truly become nothing more than a hindrance to you. Jiang Tanyi walked over from the side as well. She had changed into a black combat suit, her long hair tied high, and in her clear, cold eyes burned a rare and fierce fighting spirit. I too require real combat experience. Relying solely on spirit cores to accumulate levels will never allow me to truly master my power. I looked at them and nodded. This was precisely what I had intended to say. Xu Xiaodao's Erlang Xiansheng Zhenjun and Nezha were both top-tier combat totems. Jiang Tanyi's 9 Heavens Mysterious Maiden was an even higher-tier manifestation, capable of both offense and defense, as well as battlefield command. Their potential was immense. But in this apocalypse, potential is secondary to raw combat prowess. True powerhouses are forged only through slaughtering mountains of carcasses and wading through seas of beast blood. I stood up and said, "Then let us depart." Xu Xiaodao's eyes lit up. Where are we going? I raised my hand to activate the military's shared map covering the perimeter of Jiangzhou City. On the screen, dense clusters of red dots were scattered among the city's ruins and the suburban forests, and among them, an industrial zone in the southern suburbs of Jiangzhou glowed with the most blinding crimson. That location was marked by the military as a high-danger zone, suspected to be a lair for level 4 beasts. I pointed to that area. The southern industrial zone. After the beast tide receded last night, a pack of mutated beasts occupied that site. Military reconnaissance drones captured footage of at least 3 level 4 beasts within, along with a massive swarm of level 2 and level 3 beasts. Xu Xiaodao flashed a toothy grin. A fine hunting ground. There are plenty of them, and the experience gains will be substantial. Jiang Tanyi glanced at the map and said calmly, "The southern industrial zone is not far from the military's northern base camp. If the beasts there continue to expand their territory, they will sooner or later threaten the evacuation routes of the survivors. Therefore, this excursion serves 2 purposes. We shall clear a hidden threat while simultaneously assisting the military." I dialed Lei Zihan's contact number. The screen illuminated almost instantly. Lei Zhan appeared on the feed. His expression was visibly more relaxed than it had been last night, though his eyes still carried traces of exhaustion. "Mr. Qin, is there anything you require the military to coordinate?" I went straight to the point. "The southern industrial zone of Jiangzhou. I intend to head over and clear it out. There is a level 4 beast lair situated there." Lei Zihan was stunned for a moment, followed immediately by an expression of immense joy. "Mr. Qin, that is the very area for which we are currently requesting reinforcements. Within the southern suburban industrial zone lies a vast repository of chemical supplies. Should the mutated beasts breach it, the resulting toxic spread would devastate the northern military encampment. If you are willing to intervene, the military can immediately deploy drones to conduct reconnaissance and blockade the sector." "Very well. You are to secure the outer perimeter. There is no need for you to interfere with the interior. I shall take Xiao Dao and Xin Yi inside to sharpen their skills." "Understood. The military will establish a containment line on the outer perimeter to ensure no mutated beasts escape. Mr. Qin, please take care. It is they who should be concerned for their safety." 10 minutes later, The side gate of the Blackstone base slowly swung open as a heavy, modified, black, all-terrain vehicle surged out from the underground garage. The chassis was reinforced with bulletproof plating, the tires were embedded with alloy anti-slip treads, and an automated machine gun was mounted to the roof. Xu Xiaodao sat in the passenger seat, rubbing her hands together in unrestrained excitement. Jiang Xinyi sat in the rear, the phantom of the Swantian divine sword flickering in and out of existence in her grasp. I sat in the driver's seat and slammed on the accelerator, the engine emitting a roar like a wild beast. The black all-terrain vehicle charged out of the Blackstone base, racing south along the mountain road. Along the way, the thick snow had yet to completely melt. Both sides of the highway were littered with abandoned vehicles, gnawed upon by mutated beasts. Occasionally, a few low-level mutated creatures would lunge out, but before they could even draw near the vehicle, they were shredded into pieces by the automated machine gun on the roof. Half an hour later, the southern suburban industrial zone appeared before us. The once modern, brightly lit industrial complex had been reduced to a wretched lair for monsters. Warehouses lay in ruin, pipes were twisted, and the air was thick with a pungent, stifling chemical stench. Xu Xiaodao pushed open the door and leaped from the vehicle. Brother Lie, how shall we proceed? I gazed deep into the industrial zone. There, 3 auras emanated, significantly more powerful than the surrounding beasts. 2 4th-level mutated armored rhinoceroses, and 1 4th-level poisonous bone-gnawing master. Beyond those, there were over 100 2nd and 3rd-level mutated beasts. To my current self, these creatures are hardly worth mentioning. However, for Xu Xiaodao and Jiang Xinyi, they are the perfect whetstones for real combat experience. I flicked my hand, and the 9 dragons' coffin on my back trembled, releasing an invisible pressure that blanketed the entire. The movements of the low-level exotic beasts instantly slowed, as if an enormous mountain had descended upon their backs. However, I did not suppress them directly. I maintained my pressure at a precise level, enough to hinder the horde's speed without interfering with the battle between Xu Xiaodao and Jiang Xinyi. I would not make the first move. I watched the 2 of them, stating, "Handle the 2nd and 3rd level beasts yourselves. As for the 4th level beasts, I shall remain behind as a safeguard. Unless your lives are in mortal danger, I will not intervene." Xu Xiaodao bared his teeth in a grin. "That suits me perfectly." As he finished speaking, the totem of the 2nd sage of Erlang on his right arm suddenly flared with brilliance. A spectral avatar of the deity, clad in armor and wielding a weapon, slowly manifested behind him. Heavenly Eye of Insight. A golden light flickered between Xu Xiaodao's brows. A vertical phantom eye slowly opened. In an instant, the world around him became profoundly clear. Every movement trajectory, every gap between the scales, the muscle contractions, and the vulnerable abdominal points of the 2 mutated armored rhinoceroses were clearly captured by his heavenly eye. "I have found your openings." He gripped his 3-pointed double-edged saber, stomping his foot into the ground, causing the earth to fracture like a spiderweb. Xu Xiaodao's figure shot forward like an arrow released from a bow, instantly closing the distance to the flank of the first armored rhinoceros. He raised the 3-pointed double-edged saber high, golden light erupting from the blade. Manifestation of the saint. Rending armor. The saber light descended. Clang! A piercing sound of clashing metal resounded. Xu Xiaodao's expression shifted slightly. Although this strike landed precisely within the gap of the armored rhinoceros's dorsal plating, it did not tear through the defense as he had expected. The scales of the armored rhinoceros were far harder than he had imagined. The blade penetrated only half an inch, before being firmly wedged and halted by the dense, bony armor. The first armored rhinoceros whirled around abruptly, its thick tail whistling through the air as it whipped toward him. Xu Xiaodao had no time to retract his weapon. He had no choice but to release his grip and retreat. The massive tail grazed his chest. Even though it was merely a glancing blow, the impact sent him flying backward. He crashed heavily into an abandoned oil tanker. The tanker crumpled inward, and Xu Xiaodao let out a muffled grunt as a trail of blood leaked from the corner of his mouth. "This thing. It certainly is tough." Standing in the distance, I did not intervene. Jiang Xinyi looked toward me instinctively, but I calmly said, "Qin Lie. It will not kill him. Let him fight his own battle." Xu Xiaodao leaped down from the mangled tanker, wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth. The excitement in his eyes only grew more intense. "Now this is worth the effort." The armored rhino let out a low, guttural roar, its 4 limbs suddenly exerting force, its massive frame charging forward like a juggernaut. The remaining armored rhino circled in from the flank, attempting to completely cut off his path of retreat. With these 2 Tier 4 exotic beasts pincer attacking from left and right, Xu Xiaodao stood his ground, no longer recklessly rushing forward. The golden radiance of the heavenly eye between his brows grew increasingly brilliant, and the world in his vision seemed to slow to a crawl. Every thunderous step of the armored rhino, every rhythmic opening and closing of its scales, every minute contraction of its muscles was captured with absolute clarity by the heavenly eye. The first armored rhino lunged before him, its gargantuan maw agape, a foul, metallic stench assaulting his senses. Xu Xiaodao's body suddenly arched backward, evading the bite by a razor-thin margin. Simultaneously, he slammed his right foot into the ground, pressed his body against the beast's lower jaw, and slid into the shadow beneath its belly. The heavenly eye locked firmly onto the third soft scale beneath the abdomen. That was the exact position of the heart, the target of his blade of the manifested saint. Xu Xiaodao let out a fierce shout, and the avatar of Erlang Shen behind him swung its blade in perfect synchronization. The three-pointed double-edged spear thrust upward with tremendous force, the blade finally tearing through the soft scales, piercing ruthlessly through the abdomen of the armored rhino. The armored rhino let out a miserable, piercing shriek, its massive body twisting and convulsing in agony. The veins on Xu Xiaodao's arms bulged. His hands tightened around the haft, and with an upward heave he roared, "Open up for me, you first beast!" Its abdomen was ripped wide open, creating a massive wound, and its titanic frame collapsed to the ground with a deafening crash. But before Xu Xiaodao could even catch his breath, the second armored rhino lunged from behind. It did not strike at Xu Xiaodao directly. Instead, it veered off course, slamming into the chemical storage tank, causing half of it to collapse nearby. Zhang Xinyi's expression shifted instantly. It intended to trigger an explosion of the tank, and once the vessel detonated, the toxic gas would immediately saturate the entire industrial zone. Xu Xiaodao snapped his head up, the heavenly eye between his brows erupting in a dazzling golden light. "Does it intend to flee?" "Stay right here," he commanded, gripping the three-pointed double-edged spear with both hands and driving it deep into the earth. The avatar of Erlang Shen manifested with sudden, solid intensity, and an identical golden heavenly eye opened upon the avatar's brow. Two beams of golden light from the heavenly eyes converged in mid-air, instantly locking the second armored rhino in place. Heavenly eye, soul lock. The massive frame of the second armored rhino suddenly stiffened, as if pinned to the spot by invisible chains. It struggled violently, its four claws gouging deep trenches into the earth, yet it remained unable to escape the absolute confinement of that golden radiance. The color drained rapidly from Xu Xiaodao's face, leaving him deathly pale. This technique demanded a heavy toll on his current cultivation, yet his eyes burned with a terrifying, feverish excitement. He slowly raised his head and curled his lips into a grin, muttering, "This strike shall be your end." Boom. High above, the black skeletal remains were forcibly torn asunder by a golden-hued lance of energy. A colossal phantom of a three-pointed, double-edged glaive gradually manifested from within the clouds. The blade stretched for dozens of meters, its golden light flowing like the sharp edge of divine retribution. The air across the entire industrial zone seemed to freeze in that singular moment. Xu Xiaodao wrenched the three-pointed double-edged glaive from the ground, pointed it directly at the armored rhinoceros, and brought it down with a thunderous roar. Manifestation of divine judgment. In the next instant, the colossal phantom blade descended from the heavens with a deafening crash. The golden blade light plummeted from the sky, striking the head of the armored rhinoceros with overwhelming force. Its thick, obsidian hide fractured in an instant, and the massive beast's body was crushed violently into the earth. The ground exploded outward, leaving a crevice dozens of meters long, with debris launching into the air amidst a roiling cloud of dust. As the golden light dissipated, the level 4 armored rhinoceros lay prone within the deep crater, utterly devoid of movement. Xu Xiaodao dropped to one knee, gasping for air, as the heavenly eye between his brows slowly began to close. The Erlang Shen totem on his right arm grew dim, yet he could not suppress the triumphant grin spreading across his face. "Brother Lie, was that move impressive?" I cast a glance at the gash in the earth that had cleaved through the industrial facility. "It was passable, though the toll it took on you is far too great." Xu Xiaodao chuckled. "As long as it was impressive, that is all that matters." After resting for a significant time, he pried 2 level 4 essence crystals from the skulls of the armored rhinoceroses. The moment the 2 level 4 crystals touched his hands, the Erlang Shen totem on Xu Xiaodao's right arm grew warm, and the phantom heavenly eye between his brows flickered with a sudden glow. Clearly, after slaying 2 level 4 armored rhinoceroses in rapid succession, his totem had been fully stimulated by the heat of battle, and his bottleneck had begun to loosen. Yet he did not rush to absorb the crystals. Having repeatedly exhausted his strength on the heavenly eye and the divine judgment, his internal life force was nearly depleted. To force the absorption of level 4 crystals at such a time would not lead to a breakthrough, but to certain death. Xu Xiaodao tucked the 2 crystals into his pack and grinned. "Brother Lie, let us return." I nodded in agreement. At that very moment, a piercing shriek echoed from deep within the industrial zone. A factory building collapsed halfway, exploding into a cloud of debris. Deep green, bone-corroding mist surged outward like a tidal wave. A bone-venom spider queen, nearly the size of a truck, slowly crawled out from the ruins. Its 8 spider legs resembled razor-sharp spears, and its abdomen continuously spewed corrosive venom. Where it passed, steel pipes hissed and withered away under the chemical assault. A 4th-rank beast, The Bone Venom Spider Queen. Hua Xiaodao prepared to charge, but I raised my hand to stop him. Leave this one to Xinyi. Hua Xiaodao stood stunned. Jiang Xinyi gripped the Swantian divine sword tightly and stepped forward slowly. Her nine heavens mysterious maiden totem inherently countered the bone venom and malevolent corruption. This Bone Venom Spider Queen was the most suitable opponent for her to achieve a breakthrough. Jiang Xinyi's clear, cold voice reached me. The Spider Queen's 8 blood-red eyes locked onto her simultaneously. In the next instant, the creature's abdomen swelled significantly. A massive wave of dark green venom erupted forth, rushing toward Jiang Xinyi like a turbulent tide. Jiang Xinyi did not retreat. The wings on her back unfurled slowly, and a pristine white light radiated from her body. Mysterious maiden pure domain, a translucent white field, expanded outward with her at its center. The moment the venom collided with the pure domain, a rhythmic hissing sound erupted. Large swathes of the green venom were purged into white smoke. But the Spider Queen was capable of more than just spitting toxins. It drove its 8 legs deep into the earth. The next moment, dozens of venom-coated webs shot forth from the ruins. They coiled toward Jiang Xinyi from every direction. Jiang Xinyi slashed her sword, severing the webs in front of her, but even more shot out from behind. A single strand of spider silk grazed her forearm. Her combat suit was instantly corroded, leaving a hole, and a faint, dark bruise appeared on her skin. Hua Xiaodao's expression shifted. Jiang Xinyi did not turn back. She pressed her left hand firmly against the wound. The nine heavens mysterious maiden totem flared, and under the gentle white light the toxins were rapidly forced out of her body. I am fine. She looked up at the Bone Venom Spider Queen, her gaze turning even colder and more composed. It is not merely spitting venom. It is using its webs to set a trap. I stood from afar and gave a slight nod. Jiang Xinyi's combat aptitude was even greater than I had imagined. The poison bone spider empress hissed once more, and the countless strands of webbing hidden within the ruins began to emit a sinister, emerald glow. In a mere moment, it had transformed the entire dilapidated workshop into a lethal web of toxins. Should Jiang Xinyi take even a single misstep, she would be ensnared by the venomous threads. Jiang Xinyi closed her eyes, and the Dharma manifestation of the nine heavens mysterious maiden slowly emerged behind her. In this moment, she did not rush to draw her sword. Instead, she compressed her profound maiden purification domain into a 3-meter radius around herself. The domain shrank, yet the intensity of its purifying power soared. She took a step forward. The moment the venomous threads beneath her feet flared, they were instantly incinerated into ash by the purification domain. With the second and third steps, every footprint she left behind carved out a pristine white circle in the toxic web. With the moonflower step, Jiang Xinyi's figure suddenly blurred, turning ethereal as she slipped through the web like a beam of moonlight. The 8 eyes of the poison bone spider empress shifted frantically, yet it could not capture her true position. In the next heartbeat, the Spider Empress leaped into the air, spewing a sphere of venom so concentrated it had turned into a liquid state. As the toxic orb descended, the very air began to corrode, emitting a sharp, searing hiss. Jiang Xinyi's eyes snapped open. The profound heaven divine sword erupted with a blinding white radiance. Piercing through the void, a single stroke unleashed a brilliant white sword aura. The blade cleaved the venomous orb right down the center, the poison spilling harmlessly on either side of her. It corroded the ground into 2 deep craters, but Jiang Xinyi's figure had already bypassed the rain of poison, appearing directly beneath the poison bone spider empress. Both hands gripped the hilt, as the wings behind her back simultaneously retracted. The entirety of her purifying light was compressed onto the blade. Between heaven and earth, there seemed to remain nothing but that singular flash of white sword light. 9 heavens purify the world. The sword light shot straight into the heavens. Squelch! The massive body of the poison bone spider empress was pierced through by the white sword light. It let out a mournful, agonizing shriek. Its 8 legs twitched violently, but the purifying energy within the sword light traced the wound and spread throughout its body, instantly incinerating the poison sacs within its core. Boom! The poison bone spider empress crashed heavily to the ground. The dark green toxic bones were crushed by the overwhelming pressure of the 9 heavens mysterious maiden's purification domain before they could even diffuse. A tier 4 poison bone spider empress defeated! A dark green crystal core rolled out from the skull of the Spider Empress. Jiang Xinyi bent down to pick it up, a flash of white light shimmering in her palm as the toxic miasma on the surface of the core was cleansed away. The very moment the core fell into her grasp, the 9 heavens mysterious maiden manifestation behind her trembled slightly. The toxic energy contained within that dark green core seemed to be instinctively repelled by the 9 heavens mysterious maiden totem. Or perhaps it was being ruthlessly suppressed by the power of purification. Jiang Xinyi's aura fluctuated noticeably, yet she did not immediately absorb it. The energy within a rank 4 core is far too volatile, especially since this one originated from the poison bone spider queen. It still harbored a significant amount of residual corrupted energy. To absorb it recklessly would result in a backlash and injury at best, and at worst, it could corrupt her very totem. She stored the core and looked up at me. I nodded. It was best to keep it for now. Once we return, I will help you cleanse the corrupting essence within it. Jiang Xinyi gave a gentle nod. Xu Xiaodao watched the scene in complete astonishment. Well done, Xinyi. That strike of yours just now was even more impressive than mine. Jiang Xinyi sheathed her profound heaven divine sword and said calmly, each has its own merits, and both serve their own purposes. Xu Xiaodao grinned immediately. That goes without saying. I stepped forward and cast a glance at the two of them. Do you both realize where your shortcomings were just now? Xu Xiaodao scratched his head. I was too reckless. The armored rhinoceros possesses immense defensive capabilities. You struck with your full force before properly probing its defenses, which is why your blade became lodged. Had that tail truly connected, you would have suffered at least 3 broken ribs. Is that understood? I then turned my gaze toward Jiang Xinyi. You rely too heavily upon your domain of purification. You can cleanse the poisonous bones, but the spider silk and the traps laid in the terrain do not belong solely to the poison element. In the future, when facing corrupted type spirit beasts, do not fixate only on the toxins. You must also be mindful of how they manipulate the battlefield. Now, pack up all the cores. Low-rank cores may be used to stabilize your cultivation base, but as for cores of rank 3 and above, especially a rank 4 core, never absorb. Why is that? Just a moment ago, I felt the Erlang Shen totem about to ignite. It was merely a resonance of the totem itself. This serves as proof that your bottleneck has begun to loosen. However, within the beast core, there lies not only raw energy, but also the lingering, violent will of the exotic beast, coupled with the tainted aura. While low-level beast cores are manageable, if one rashly absorbs high-level cores without thoroughly purifying them, at best, the totem will backfire. And at worst, one's very life essence will be corrupted. Jiang Xinyi lowered her head, casting a glance at the poison-bone spider queen core in her hand. Although she had already cleansed a layer from the surface of the core, a faint, dark green mist still swirled within. She grasped my meaning immediately. It must be purified beforehand. I nodded. Once we return, I will use the funeral coffin to refine these for both of you, stripping away the tainted aura and violent will entirely. By retaining only the purest totem energy, your breakthrough will be both safe and certain. Soon, every exotic beast in the southern industrial zone had been harvested for their cores. There were hundreds of low-level cores, over 20 level 3 cores, and 3 level 4 cores. Among them, the level 4 poison bone spider queen core belonged to Jiang Xinyi. The 2 level 4 armored rhino cores belonged to Xu Xiaodao. At this precise moment, a video communication from Lei Zahan appeared on the screen. Watching the footage transmitted by the drones of the industrial zone, he let out a visible sigh of relief. Mr. Qin, the exotic beast nest in the southern industrial zone has been confirmed as cleared. The chemical contamination threat at the northern camp has been neutralized. I am deeply grateful to you and your 2 companions for your intervention. I nodded. It was convenient for me as well, as I needed to lead them through real combat to facilitate their advancement. Lei Zahan was stunned for a moment, then let out a bitter laugh. Mr. Qin, you jest. To the military, this place is classified as a highly dangerous nest. I glanced at Xu Xiaodao and Jiang Xinyi. Having just endured a brutal battle, their auras were clearly much more solidified than before we departed. The results of this excursion were quite satisfactory. I informed Lei Zahan that from now on, for any beast nests of rank 4 or higher, his team could directly transmit the coordinates to us. Provided it does not interfere with our own agenda, we will handle the cleanup ourselves. Understood. I will report your intentions to General Long immediately, he replied. After hanging up, I gazed toward the black mist that was slowly dispersing in the distance. The industrial zone in the southern suburbs was merely the beginning. A vast number of beast nests still surround Jiangju. To ordinary survivors, these places are death zones, but for us, they are the finest arenas for cultivation. However, now is not the time to continue the hunt. Xu Xiaodao and Jiang Xinyi have just endured a grueling battle, and their bottlenecks have begun to loosen. It is time to ensure the spirit cores in our possession are truly transformed into our own strength. Upon returning to the Black Rock base, I raised my right hand, and the 9 dragons pulling the coffin etched upon my back grew slightly warm. The burial coffin devouring art began to circulate in silence, and the phantom of the black coffin drifted behind me. Wisps of pitch-black mist were drawn out from the 3 rank 4 spirit cores. These were the remnants of corrupting miasma and the violent, primal will of the beasts. If an ordinary awakened individual were to absorb these directly, they would have to rely solely on their own willpower to endure. If they succeed, their strength surges. But should they fail, the totem will turn against them. Yet, in the presence of the 9 dragons pulling the coffin, these corrupting energies act as the finest nourishment. The black coffin shuddered briefly, consuming every impurity in its entirety. The radiance emitted by the 3 remaining spirit cores became significantly purer. I handed the 2 spirit cores from the armored rhinoceros to Xu Xiaodao. I then passed the poison bone spider queen's spirit core to Zhang Xinyi. Xu Xiaodao accepted the core, a grin spreading across his face. "Thank you, Brother Lie, thank you." The very next moment, both of them began to absorb the energy from the cores simultaneously. Xu Xiaodao was the first to erupt. The Erlang Shen totem on his right arm seemed to spring to life, and a small fissure opened in the center of its forehead. A phantom of a divine eye, emanating a destructive golden radiance, slowly began to open. Behind him, the avatar of Erlang Shen, clad in armor and wielding a blade, became increasingly distinct and tangible. Elsewhere, the transformation of Jiang Xinyi was even more astounding. The bone-poisoned Spider Queen core in her palm was being purified and absorbed, bit by bit, by the 9 Heavens' mysterious maiden totem. The originally deep green core energy transformed into streams of pure white mysterious light as it entered her body. The 9 Heavens' mysterious maiden totem manifested behind her, forming 6 wings of radiant white energy that spread wide across her back. In her hands, it condensed a profound heaven divine sword that radiated a bone-chilling aura. Half an hour later, the auras of both individuals erupted simultaneously. Xu Xiaodao was the first to snap his eyes open. He had reached the early stage of Tier 4, mid-stage Tier 4, late-stage Tier 4, and finally, he settled at the peak of Tier 4. Zhang Xinyi's aura also climbed steadily. The 9 Heavens' mysterious maiden manifestation became increasingly solid, finally coming to rest at the peak of Tier 4 as well. Filled with excitement, Xu Xiaodao slammed his fist into the ground. Boom! A shallow crater was carved into the alloy floor. Damn it, is this what the peak of Tier 4 feels like? I feel terrifyingly powerful right now. Jiang Xinyi retracted her wings and opened her eyes. She was not as flamboyant as Xu Xiaodao, yet a clear glimmer of joy flickered deep within her gaze. The 9 Heavens, the purification domain of the mysterious maiden, has expanded 3-fold. If we encounter large-scale bone poison miasma or mental corruption type exotic beasts again, I can sustain a safe zone to protect us. I nodded in satisfaction. Just then, a video call from Lei Zihan flickered onto the screen. Lei Zihan looked at the 3 of us, his eyes unable to hide his shock. "Mr. Qin, it has been confirmed that the high-danger nest in the southern industrial zone has been thoroughly cleared today. The pressure on the northern base camp has been significantly alleviated. Commander Long instructed me to relay his gratitude." Very well. I ended the call. Xu Xiaodao stretched his limbs and asked, "Brother Lai, are we heading out to slay more beasts tomorrow?" I looked up at the screen, where the National Exotic Beast Alert was constantly updating. I replied slowly, "There is no need to rush in the areas surrounding Jiangzhou for now. Next, we should keep it for now. Once we get back, I'll help you filter out the residual pollution inside." Jiang Xinyi gave a faint nod. "All right." Xu Xiaodao watched the scene in complete awe. "My God, Xinyi, that sword strike of yours was even cooler than mine." Jiang Xinyi sheathed her Swantian divine sword and said coldly, "Everyone has their own strengths and uses." Xu Xiaodao immediately flashed a wide grin, that's for sure. I stepped forward, glanced at the 2 of them, and asked, "Do you 2 realize where you messed up back there?" Xu Xiaodao scratched his head. "I was too impulsive. The armor on that armored rhino is incredibly tough. Your first strike was a full power blow, without even testing its defenses, which is why your blade got stuck. If that tail whip had actually connected, you would have had at least 3 broken ribs. Got it?" I turned my attention to Jiang Xinyi. "You relied far too much on your purification domain. You can purify poisons, but spider silk and terrain traps aren't exclusively poison-based. In the future, when facing pollution-type mutated beasts, don't just focus on the venom. Keep an eye on how they've set up the battlefield." Understood. Now gather all the cores. Low-level cores can be used to stabilize your cultivation, but cores from level 3 and above, especially level 4 cores, must absolutely never be absorbed recklessly on the battlefield. Why is that? Just a moment ago, I felt like my Erlang Shen totem was about to burst into flames. That's just the totem's resonance, signaling that your breakthrough bottleneck is loose. But these cores don't just contain energy, they hold the remnants of the beast's wild will and polluted aura. Low-level cores are manageable, but if you rashly absorb high-level cores without proper purification, at best you'll suffer totem backlash, and at worst, your very life essence will be corrupted. Zhang Xinyi looked down at the toxic bone spider queen core in her hand. The surface had already been purified by her, but inside, a dark green mist was still swirling faintly. She quickly understood what I meant, "So we need to filter them first." I nodded, telling them that once we return, I will use my artifact to refine them for you both, stripping away all the polluted aura and wild, bloodthirsty intent, leaving only the purest totem energy behind. That way, absorbing them to break through will be completely safe and guaranteed. Before long, we had collected all the cores from the mutated beasts in the southern industrial zone. There were several hundred low-level cores in total. We managed to secure over 20 grade 3 cores, along with 3 grade 4 cores, including the one from the Poison Bone Queen, which went to Jiang Xinyi. As for the 2 grade 4 cores from the armored rhinos, those were claimed by Zhu Xiaodao. Just then, Lei Zihan's video call popped up on the screen. He studied the footage of the industrial zone transmitted by the drone, letting out a visible sigh of relief. Mr. Shin, the monster nest in the southern suburbs industrial park has been confirmed clear. The chemical contamination threat at the North Camp has also been neutralized. We owe a great debt of gratitude to you and your 2 teammates for stepping in. I gave a slight nod, adding that I was also looking for opportunities to give my team some real-world combat experience. Lei Zihan was taken aback for a moment, before offering a wry, bitter smile. Mr. Qin, you must be joking. From the military's perspective, this nest was classified as an extremely high-danger zone. I glanced over at Xu Xiaodao and Jiang Xinyi, noting that after such a brutal skirmish, their auras had clearly become far more solid and refined than when we first started. All things considered, this mission was a massive success. I told Lei Zihan that for any monster nests grade 4 or higher, he could just send us the coordinates directly. As long as it didn't interfere with our own plans, we would be more than happy to handle the cleanup. Understood. I will report your intentions to Commander Long immediately. Once the call ended, I turned my gaze toward the black mist, slowly dissipating in the distance. The southern industrial park was only the beginning. The areas surrounding Jiangju were still crawling with monster dens. While these places were death zones for average survivors, for us, they were the ultimate training grounds. But for now, it wasn't the time to keep hunting. Xu Xiaodao and Jiang Xinyi had just pushed themselves to the limit. Their breakthrough bottlenecks had finally loosened, and now they needed to transform these cores into raw, undeniable personal strength. After returning to the Blackstone base, I raised my right hand as the 9-dragon coffin behind me began to radiate heat, and the burial coffin started to hum with a life of its own. A ghostly shadow of the pitch-black coffin flashed briefly before vanishing behind my back. Wisps of black fog were pulled out from the 3 grade 4 cores, purging the residual pollution and the primal, savage bloodlust left behind by the monsters. Normally, if an awakened were to absorb these directly, they would have to rely on their sheer willpower to survive the corruption. If they succeed, their strength skyrockets. If they fail, the power backfires and destroys them from within. Yet, in the presence of the 9 dragons dragging the coffin, these polluted auras served as nothing more than the perfect nutrients. The black coffin shuddered slightly, devouring every last impurity, and the 3 remaining beast cores began to radiate a far purer light. I handed the 2 armored rhino cores to Xu Xiaodao and gave the poison bone spider queen core to Jiang Xinyi. Xu Xiaodao took the cores, grinning from ear to ear. Thanks, Brother Lai, thanks a million. The very next second, both of them began to absorb the energy from the cores. Zhu Xiaodao's vanguard powers erupted, and the totem of the Erlang Shen on his right arm seemed to come to life as a small vertical slit cracked open in the center of its forehead, revealing a divine eye that emanated a destructive golden light. Behind him, the armored manifestation of the Erlang Shen wielding a blade became increasingly solid and imposing. Meanwhile, the transformation taking place in Jiang Xinyi was even more staggering. The poison bone spider queen core in her palm was being purified bit by bit and absorbed by her 9 heavens mysterious maiden totem. The energy, originally a dark, sickly green, transformed into streams of pure white light as it flowed into her body. The 9 heavens mysterious maiden totem behind her blossomed into 6 brilliant, pure white energy wings, while in her hands, she condensed a divine blade, the Xuan Tian God Sword, radiating a bone-chilling, icy aura. Half an hour later, a surge of power exploded from them both simultaneously. Xu Xiaodao opened his eyes, surging from level 4 early stage to mid to late, finally stopping at the very peak of level 4. Jiang Xinyi's aura climbed steadily as well, her mysterious maiden manifestation growing more distinct, until she, too, hit the peak of level 4. Xu Xiaodao punched the ground in pure excitement. Boom! The alloy floor buckled, leaving a deep crater where his fist had landed. Holy crap, is this really the power of a level 4 peak expert? I feel terrifyingly strong right now. Jiang Xinyi retracted her wings and slowly opened her eyes. She wasn't as boisterous as Xu Xiaodao, but a faint, satisfied smile flickered in her eyes. The purification field of my 9 heavens mysterious maiden has expanded threefold. If we encounter large-scale mind-polluting beasts or toxic miasma again, I can easily maintain a safe zone for us. I nodded in satisfaction. Just then, a video call from Lei Zihan flickered onto the screen. Lei Zihan looked at the 3 of us, his eyes wide with unconcealable shock. Mr. Shin, the high-level threat nest in the South Industrial Zone has been cleared, and the pressure on the North Camp has plummeted. Commander Long asked me to pass along his personal gratitude to you. Xu Xiaodao stretched her arms and asked, Aunt Liette, are we heading out to hunt more monsters tomorrow? I stared at the National Beast Alert feed as it rapidly refreshed on the screen and replied slowly, there's no rush to clear the areas around Jiangzhou anymore. We should start looking at the other battlefronts instead. Deep within the underground command center of the Blackstone base, the newly connected National High-Level Beast Monitoring Network was flashing with endless, blood-red warnings. We had already wiped out the high-level monster nests surrounding Jiangzhou. Both Zhu Xiaodao and Jiang Xinyi had broken through to the peak of level 4 through combat. But it still wasn't enough. On the massive screen, almost every major battlefront in the Long Nation appeared to be on the verge of total collapse. Beijing, the northwest, the southern coast, everywhere was lit up with bright red alerts. But the most blinding of all was an abnormal thunderstorm cluster hovering over the southwestern mountains. Zhu Xiaodao chewed on a piece of dried beef, her scalp tingling at the sight. Aunt Juliet, this is getting ridiculous. Jiang Zhao just finally calmed down. And now everything else is falling apart. Jiang Xinyi stood before the giant screen, her gaze fixed on the southwestern region. A single, glaring red dot was pulsing there with high-frequency intensity. With every pulse, the blue symbols representing the nearby military defensive lines grew noticeably dimmer. Her voice dropped. The southwest. Something terrible has happened. As soon as she finished speaking, the comms light blinked to life. A video call from Lei Zihan was connected. On the screen, his face looked exhausted, his combat gear caked in gunpowder, smoke, and mud. Mr. Qin, the southwestern battlefront requires urgent reinforcements. Lei Zihan quickly pulled up the frontline feed, and the next second, the giant display shifted to real-time footage of the southwest battlefield. It was a mountain fortress built against the cliffs, with heavy thunderclouds suffocating the city, and rain pouring down like a waterfall. But this wasn't ordinary rainwater. The rain was laced with toxic black fog and flickering arcs of purple-blue lightning. They slammed against the armor of the tanks, emitting piercing, sizzling noises. The urban infrastructure had been transformed into a massive, lethal electrical grid. Wrecked tanks sat abandoned and gutted along the roadside. Countless soldiers were braving the toxic, electrified rain. They were desperately escorting survivors toward the northern shelters. As the camera shook, a young soldier clutching an unconscious little girl sprinted for his life toward the evacuation vehicle. The girl's face was deathly pale, her hands tightly gripping half of a ragdoll soaked through by the rain. "Hurry! Get the child on the transport first." The young soldier had just ushered the little girl into the transport cabin when the puddle at his feet suddenly erupted with crackling blue and purple electric arcs. "Watch out!" A grizzled veteran lunged from the side, shoving the young soldier toward the safety of the vehicle's door. In the blink of an eye, the arcs exploded, sending the veteran flying through the air before he crashed into the nearby rubble. His tactical gear was billowing with white smoke, yet his finger remained pointed firmly toward the convoy. "Don't stop. Get the child to safety first." Inside the transport cabin, the little girl was jolted awake. She pressed her face against the window, watching the veteran lying in the pouring rain, sobbing until her voice went hoarse. "Uncle!" Two soldiers providing cover immediately bolted from their hiding spots, intending to pull the veteran to safety. But the electric arcs were still wildly spreading across the puddle. As soon as one of them stepped into the water, his leg armor erupted in a shower of sparks. "Arg!" He collapsed to his knees instantly. The medic's eyes turned bloodshot as he roared, "Stay out of the water, the lightning field hasn't dissipated yet." The convoy commander gripped his fist tight, his eyes rimmed with red. But he gritted his teeth and gave the order. "The evacuation convoy must keep moving. Rear guard provide cover, medical team prepare for extraction, no vehicle is allowed to stop." It wasn't that they didn't want to turn back, but the final vehicles were packed with the wounded, the elderly, and children. If the convoy halted for even a second, everyone would be swallowed by the lightning field. The piece of beef jerky in Zhu Xiaodao's mouth fell to the table, and the mocking smirk on his face vanished completely. Jiang Xinyi's expression turned icy as the camera panned out further. On the edge of the city, a colossal monster stood upright, slowly marching through the ruins. It stood over 80 meters tall, resembling a giant iguana walking on two legs, but far more ferocious than any lizard in existence. Its entire body covered in armor-plated, blue-black scales that surged with electricity. Every step it took caused the ground to explode with violent arcs of lightning. An armored vehicle that hadn't evacuated in time was caught by the monster's massive tail, sent spinning through the air before slamming into a building. Immediately after, the beast opened its jagged, saw-toothed maw. An orb of blue-purple plasma gathered deep within its throat. Boom! The plasma blast erupted, piercing straight through three large buildings. Lei Zan spoke in a deep, contemplative voice. "The target is codenamed Thunderscale Lizard. Currently identified as a level 6 minor monstrosity. It crawled out of the Red Moon fissure in the southwest, and has already decimated 3 defensive lines. Based on its current speed, it will take at most 15 minutes for its lightning field to engulf the entire evacuation route." On the monitor, 976 life signals were huddled together along the northern evacuation route. Every single green dot represented a person who hadn't managed to escape just yet. I stared intently at that thunderscale giant lizard, noting how every time it unleashed a plasma burst, a faint blue-violet glow pulsed beneath its breastbone, That had to be its core. At that exact moment, the 9 dragons' coffin strapped to my back began to radiate a subtle heat. Deep within the black coffin, the first blood-red chain let out a faint, rhythmic vibration. It was hungry for that monster core. If I could secure it, the first chain would stabilize completely, and the second one might even begin to loosen. I slowly stood up, making my decision. I was going. Mr. Qin, thank you. There is no need for such formalities. Protecting our homeland and our people is our duty. Let the convoy keep moving. Leave the Thunderscale giant lizard to me. Focus your final remaining firepower on the flanks of the evacuation route. And don't let the beast horde reach the civilians. Understood. I turned my gaze back to the tactical map. The Thunderscale giant lizard is a lightning-type beast, meaning it's likely surrounded by a lethal geomagnetic storm field. Keep the drones back. Any electronic equipment that enters the core storm zone will likely fry instantly. Lei Zihan quickly took notes as I turned to look at Xu Xiaodao and Jiang Xinyi. Xiaodao, Xinyi, we're moving out. Xu Xiaodao leaped to her feet, finally ready for a real, high-stakes battle. You're in charge of clearing the lightning rain and shielding the wounded. The fallout and the electrical currents surrounding the evacuees are your responsibility. Got it. 3 minutes later, the armor plating atop the Black Rock base slowly slid open. A supersonic transport plane, dispatched urgently by the military, sat waiting on the deck. Xu Xiaodao looked from the transport plane to me. Brother Lai, we're all awakened ones now. Do we really still need a plane? Can't you just fly directly there? Can I fly? Sure. Then what's the point of taking the plane? It's thousands of kilometers from Jiangju to the southwest. And right now, the world is choked with black fog, constant lightning, and swarms of flying monsters. Flying across multiple combat zones over such a distance is an exhausting feat. Once you reach the battlefield, do you plan on gasping for air for Then it's best if we just take the transport plane. The massive engines of the transport roared to life as the giant fuselage surged out from Black Rock base, tearing through the thick, low-hanging black fog and accelerating rapidly toward the southwest. Over an hour later, the transport entered the outskirts of the southwest war zone. The sky outside the window had completely transformed. Dense thunderclouds pressed down on the mountains, and rain poured down like a waterfall. Blue and purple arcs of lightning slithered through the cloud layers like massive, demonic serpents. Mr. Qin, we're 30 kilometers out from entering the severe storm zone. The electronic interference is getting critical. If we go any deeper, there's a high risk the transport will go down. The cargo bay doors groaned open, and a violent gale, carrying freezing raindrops, instantly whipped into the cabin. In the distance, the mountain city was illuminated by the flickering flashes of lightning. Xu Xiaodao stepped to the edge of the open bay, looked down thousands of meters, and gave a wicked grin. Now this is the kind of grand entrance that suits me. The Dharma manifestation of Nezha, complete with 3 heads and 6 arms, materialized behind Xu Xiaodao. With the fire-tipped spear, universe ring, and red armillary sash manifesting one after another, Xu Xiaodao stepped onto his wheels of wind and fire and leaped out of the aircraft. A streak of crimson fire sliced through the lightning-filled sky. He looked like a burning meteor as he hurtled down toward the southwest mountain city. Listen up, you monsters. The young master has arrived. Jiang Kenyi spread her 6 wings, using the pure radiance of her fluorescent glow to carve out a clean, serene space amidst the torrential thunderstorm. Standing at the edge of the bay, the 9 dragons pulling the coffin on my back trembled slightly, as a dark, golden aura surged beneath my feet. The very next second, I stepped out into the void. The freezing gale lashed at my face, and the black fog swirled around me as I rode the dark, golden current, free-falling from a height of 1,000 meters. Below us, the southwest mountain city was engulfed in flames, and a colossal thunder forest titan stood tall, its massive head slowly tilting upward from the outskirts of the city. It seemed to have sensed our arrival, its vertical blue-purple eyes locked onto the sky, and the glowing plasma gathering in its maw was aimed directly at the northern evacuation route. The final transport vehicle was still struggling to reach the safety of the perimeter. I looked down at that level 6 monstrosity, my voice dropping to a low, cold tone. The southwest battlefield has finally arrived. High above the southwest mountain city, the dark thunderclouds hung dangerously low as the storm descended upon us like a crushing weight from the heavens, slamming into the desolate ruins of the city below. Rainwater, mixed with the corruption of black bone ash and the dazzling blue-purple lightning, hammered mercilessly against the hulls of the armored vehicles. Sharp, ear-piercing hissing sounds filled the air. The floodwater covering the streets had turned into a massive, electrified trap, capable of swallowing anyone whole. In the distance, every step the Thunderscale behemoth took sent blue and purple sparks surging through the submerged streets. The entire city seemed to be trapped inside a giant, lethal electric cage. At the north end of the evacuation route, the final 3 transport convoys remained deadlocked in the flooded outskirts. Military ambulances were short-circuiting, and transport trucks were stuck on a crumbling section of the road. The rear guard was being torn apart, wave after wave, by the savage beast swarm. The silhouettes of the injured and the desperate cries of children, the roaring of soldiers, and the shrill shrieks of mutated beasts all merged into the chaotic storm as the electric field threatened to tear the road apart. With a strike, the Southwest Theater commander, Liu, stood beside his field command vehicle. His military cap was already completely soaked through by the torrential rain. On his face, it was impossible to distinguish between the falling rain and cold sweat. The voices of his frontline soldiers crackled through the radio, strained and hoarse. "Commander, the electric field is expanding, and the medical vehicles won't start. The beast swarm from the eastern ruins is closing in." Liu gripped the radio so hard his knuckles turned deathly pale. "How much longer does that last transport truck need?" "It needs at least 12 minutes to reach the bunker, but we have 5 minutes, maybe less, before this electric field wipes us out." For the first time, a look of utter helplessness flickered in Liu's eyes. Just then, a piercing whistle ripped through the air above. "Commander, we've detected a massive energy signature descending from the sky." Liu abruptly looked up. Beneath the dense, thundering clouds, 3 figures were plummeting from the heavens. The first to descend was a streak of blinding white light, with 6 wings unfurling from behind, manifesting in a flurry of willpower as the ethereal phantom of a 9 heavens goddess shimmered into existence behind her. She didn't even glance at the thunder-scale behemoth, instead diving straight toward the evacuation convoy. Because down there, someone was at their breaking point. A military medic had just scrambled out of an ambulance, desperately trying to pull a fallen soldier out of the water, but the blue and purple arcs of lightning surging through the floodwaters lashed onto his legs. The man stumbled and collapsed face first into the freezing water. Inside the vehicles, children shrieked in terror for the doctor, while the mutated beasts, driven mad by the electric field, had completely lost their senses. They didn't care about dying, charging headlong to block the evacuation route. Xu Xiaodao's defensive line was pushed back by the beasts. 1 meter, 2 meters, then 3. A lightning-armored beast lunged through the flames, crashing hard into the Nazi HA avatar. The shockwave sent Xu Xiaodao staggering backward until his back hit a tree. Right behind him was the evacuation truck packed with civilians. From inside the vehicle came the sound of crying children and the muffled, stifled coughs of the elderly. Xu Xiaodao looked down at his own hands, which were going numb from the sheer impact. Then, he slammed his fire-tipped spear into the ground, and a crimson blaze roared to life, surging up along the shaft. "If you want to cross this line, you'll have to get through my spear first." Boom! The Nazi HA avatar expanded once more, its 3 heads and 6 arms, standing firm as a barricade before the evacuation path. Brilliant red sparks ignited with blinding intensity, stubbornly holding the beast horde back 30 meters away. Liu reacted instantly, roaring out, "All support teams, provide cover for the outer defense line and get the civilians into the safe zone." The convoy pushed forward. The evacuation route had nearly collapsed, but thanks to Jiang Xinyi and Xu Xiaodao, it was held steady against all odds. The Nazi HA avatar with 3 heads and 6 arms slowly manifested, the fire-tipped spear, the universe ring, and the armillary sash, 3 spectral artifacts spinning within the 6 arms of the manifestation. He turned his head to glance at the convoy behind him. Through the window, a little girl was hugging a water-soaked ragdoll. Her tear-filled eyes looked up at him, causing the small smile on Xu Xiaodao's face to fade. Then he whipped his head back, his gaze locked onto the surging sea of monsters. "Brothers in Jinan, retreat. Leave the defense to us. These monsters are mine to deal with." The moment he finished speaking, his windfire wheels burst into flames. Xu Xiaodao transformed into a blazing red blur, diving into the heart of the horde like a meteor streaking across the sky. His 2 windfire wheels spun rapidly against the ground, carving deep trails of fire in their wake. The lead mutant beasts were torn apart by the wall of fire, their formation crumbling in an instant. The fire-tipped spear swept across the field, piercing the skull of a lightning wolf. With a brutal swing of the universe ring, the shoulder joint of a colossal mutant monster was shattered on impact. The armillary sash transformed into a crimson ribbon, ensnaring 3 monsters, lunging toward the convoy, before hurling them violently back. However, the horde of beasts was overwhelming, and within the ruins, those glowing crimson eyes never stopped flickering. At the city limits, a colossal giant lizard monster stood a staggering 80 meters tall. Boom! A golden stream of energy descended from the heavens. I landed right at the end of the city's main street, the cement ground beneath me cracking and shattering with every inch. The rainwater was blasted away, creating a vacuum zone surrounding me for a fleeting moment. I slowly raised my head. In the distance, the lightning forest giant lizard was staring right back at me. Its massive, upright frame leaned forward slightly as blue-violet lightning crackled across its armor, its eyes reflecting the dark silhouette behind me. The phantom of the 9 dragons pulling the ancient coffin slowly emerged behind me. 9 obsidian dragon shadows unfurling, their eyes burning with vibrant colors as the ancient coffin suppressed the very void itself. This was the first time the lightning forest giant lizard had ever stopped in its tracks, for it sensed a danger far beyond that of typical prey. It was the crushing pressure of a forbidden totem's power. Li Yu watched the 9 dragon coffin pulling phantom behind me, his breath hitching in his throat. Could this really be Mr. Qin from Jiangzhou? The lightning forest giant lizard threw its head back, emitting a roar that seemed to tear through the rain. Every glass window in the city shattered into dust under the sheer force of that sonic blast. Lightning rampaged through the clouds as blue-violet electrical bolts poured from the sky, converging above its head. It opened its jagged maw, a brilliant blue-violet plasma orb gathering deep within its throat. But this time, it wasn't aiming for me. It was locking onto the northern exit. Li Yu's face paled. The creature was targeting the convoy, and with Jiang Xinyi's defensive perimeter still wrapped in the electronic field, they had no time to retreat. My eyes darkened as I took a single step, instantly shifting to block the path between the giant lizard and the exit. The energy orb erupted with a deafening roar, a massive pillar of blue-violet lightning, thick as a tank, tearing through the mist straight at me. I raised my right arm, and the Pangu totem on my chest flared with a deep, golden glow. A phantom of Pangu appeared behind me. Not massive, only a few dozen meters tall, yet it carried an ancient, crushing weight that could flatten all of existence. As I clenched my 5 fingers into a fist, the Pangu phantom mirrored my movement perfectly. With Pangu's divine strength, I threw my punch, and the phantom followed suit. The fist collided head-on with the blast of lightning. The blue-violet bolt and the bronze-colored force collided in mid-air, turning the entire street as bright as high noon. A terrifying shockwave swept through the surroundings, pulverizing the falling rain into a fine mist. Everything turned blindingly white. Abandoned vehicles lining the street were tossed into the air like toys. Li Yue and his nearby soldiers had to cling to their cover, just to avoid being blown away by the sheer force of the impact. The brunt of the lightning strike was cut in half. The remaining electrical currents began to ripple through the puddles pooling on the street, but they were halted 3 meters away by the black and gold aura of the 9 dragons pulling the coffin. I looked down at my slightly numb right hand. This grade 6 beast was truly harder to deal with than the Fuhai ancient dragon. The Thunder Forest giant lizard saw its energy blast blocked, its eyes glinting with pure ferocity. It used its massive hind legs to propel its colossal body forward, like a mountain charging straight at me, each heavy step causing the road to crack and split apart. From its body, sparks of lightning bled out onto the ground. Every puddle instantly shimmered with a violent blue-violet electrical charge. Qin Lie, it's spreading a lightning field. Mr. Qin, every electronic device in that sector is completely fried. Anyone who gets close will be instantly incapacitated. I didn't retreat. Instead, I took a step forward, a lightning field. Simultaneously, 9 dragon roars echoed behind me. The phantom image of the 9 dragons pulling the coffin materialized, 9 black dragons coiling through the air, dragging the mysterious black coffin to blockade the entire street. The 9 dragons exerted their suppression, causing the coffin phantom to shudder, unleashing a forbidden power that pinned the giant lizard's massive frame to the ground. The creature's charge came to a jarring halt, its claws digging deep into the asphalt, as if an invisible force was blocking its electrical expansion. The speed of the lightning slowed down. It's working! A flicker of hope appeared in Li Yu's eyes. But in the very next moment, the giant lizard erupted with a blinding, violent, blue-violet light. Arcs of electricity surged wildly from the gaps in its armored scales. It actually managed to resist the suppression of the 9 dragons, and hoisted its head up. With a thunderous roar, it continued to push forward. The ground collapsed with a deafening rumble, and I felt my killing intent rise. A grade 6 beast is not so easily broken. Behind me, a sliver of black light slowly opened, and a pitch-black chain shot out from the dark coffin, aiming straight for the giant lizard's leg. Sensing the threat, the beast swung its tail with immense force, the massive appendage crackling with concentrated electricity. If that strike hit the emergency exit, it would have easily flipped dozens of armored vehicles. I flicked my wrist. The chain went taut and stopped cold. The chain tightened around the tail, and the raw electricity surged back along the metal links. My arm began to go numb. In that split second, the black coffin vibrated gently, activating its devouring power. And the surging lightning energy was sucked clean into the abyss of the casket. The giant lizard's massive body was jerked violently to the side. The colossal tail merely grazed the edge of the emergency exit. A row of buildings was sliced clean in half, yet the evacuation convoy remained completely untouched. From a distance, Xu Xiaodao clearly witnessed the scene, shouting, "Brother Lai, that's insane!" But I had no time to respond because the Thunderscale Titan was completely enraged. It threw open its massive maw as the storm clouds above began to swirl violently, drawing blue and purple lightning from every direction. "Commander-in-Chief, It's absorbing the remaining energy from the city's power grid. The electrical field's range is expanding rapidly. It's planning to detonate the entire city. Mr. Qin Lie turned and looked at me sharply. I tilted my head to stare at the churning vortex of thunderclouds. The aura of the Thunderscale Titan kept climbing early level 6, approaching mid-level 6. This monster was actually trying to tap into the city's entire power grid and the storm clouds to force a momentary breakthrough, wasn't it? I raised my right hand, and chains of black shadow emerged from the void one by one. 1, 3, 5... Eventually, 9 obsidian chains pierced through the bone-chilling clouds, tearing through the downpour as they lunged toward the Titan. The Thunderscale Titan roared, its voice vibrating with the power of 1,000 lightning strikes. At that moment, the entire southwest mountain range was submerged in a sea of blue and purple electricity, and I stood beneath those lightning bolts, shadowed by the 9 dragons suppressing the void. Li Yue had just started to breathe a sigh of relief, but to his shock, the rainwater flooding the streets began to glow with intense light. The Thunderscale Titan had no intention of engaging in a head-on battle. It only meant to use its electrical field to evade me. Its target remained the escape route toward the north. The 9 black chains punched straight through the bone-like clouds. These chains tore the torrential rain to shreds. The Titan roared and reared its head, its massive 80-meter frame stomping violently through the city streets. Blue and purple arcs of electricity filled the air, piercing through the gaps in its armor. The first black chain tightened around its left arm, the second chain locked its right arm in place, while the third and fourth chains acted like massive spikes, driving deep into the ground near its feet. The remaining 5 chains wrapped around its neck, tail, and chest one after another. With a single pull, I slammed it down. The asphalt ripped apart, creating deep, jagged trenches. Nearby vehicle, concrete and steel structures were swaying violently amidst the downpour. The decaying buildings lining both sides of the street were on the verge of total collapse. I stood under the relentless rain, my right hand slowly tightening into a fist. Behind me, the phantom of the 9 dragons pulling a coffin weighed down half the sky. 9 black dragons lowered their heads, their crimson eyes locked onto the Titan lightning toad. The phantom of the black coffin suddenly shuddered with a deafening roar as an aura of forbidden power descended from the heavens, pressing down heavily on the massive body of the Titan lightning toad. Its legs sank deep into the cracked earth, and the lightning field, that had been rampantly spreading, was forced down by an invisible hand, causing its expansion to come to a sudden, stuttering halt. Li Yu, the commander-in-chief of the Southwest Theater, watched the scene with eyes wide in disbelief. "It's working," the adjutant beside him spoke with a trembling voice. "Commander, the pressure at the evacuation route has decreased, and the lightning field is slowing down." Li Yue snapped back to reality and ordered all evacuation convoys to speed up, while the medical teams rushed the wounded into the purification zone, and the rearguard tightened their defensive line. Orders were passed down one after another, and the evacuation team, which was on the brink of collapse, finally regained its order. Ambulances slowly pulled away, and transport trucks carrying citizens inched toward the northern tunnel under the protection of soldiers. Inside the vehicles, the elderly held their children tight, and the wounded clutched their injuries, no one daring to make a sound. Everyone knew that their survival hinged entirely on the next few minutes. However, I knew full well that the Titan lightning toad hadn't reached its limit yet. A Tier 6 monster wouldn't be finished off so easily. Sure enough, in the next second, beneath the beast's breastplate, that violet-blue core of light suddenly flared to life, and the lightning patterns on its skin seemed to come alive, frantically surging toward its chest. Its body, bound tight by the 9 iron chains of the black coffin, began to struggle. It raised its head, and with a hiss, blood-red electricity traveled back up the chains in a brutal counterattack. My right arm instantly went numb. The next moment, half of my body turned stiff from the electric discharge. This was no ordinary lightning. It was laced with the corruption of the red moon and the malevolent will of the beast. If an average person were struck by this surge, their genetic structure would be corrupted in an instant. I gritted my teeth and steadied my right arm, while the black coffin behind me cracked open just a sliver. The devouring coffin activated, and those swirling currents of lightning crawling along the chains were forcibly swallowed by the black coffin before they could even touch my body. From deep within the black coffin, a low, muffled roar echoed, as if an ancient existence were chewing on the lightning itself. Behind me, the first crimson chain of the 9 dragons began to glow with blinding intensity as it dragged the coffin. The Thunderscale giant seemed to realize what was happening. For the first time, its slit-like pupils flickered with a mixture of terror and fury. The next second, instead of struggling, it suddenly opened its massive jaw toward the sky and unleashed an ear-splitting roar. Roar! Thunderclouds churned, the downpour turned violent, and the rainwater hitting the ground began to pulse with a chilling violet-blue light. Every puddle in the entire city was illuminated by the electrical field in that single heartbeat. Streets, collapsed sewers, stairwells, and ruined power grids, All the remaining metal and stagnant water became conduits for the spreading lightning. Jiang Xinyi's face turned pale instantly. The lightning field was already bypassing him, creeping toward the evacuation route. I turned my head to look. Sure enough, although the main body of the Thunderscale Giant was locked tight by my 9 dragon chains, the lightning field it unleashed was using the water on the streets, slipping past the main battlefield and spreading toward the northern evacuation tunnel. Violet-blue bolts of electricity followed the water, spreading like wildfire. As several armored transport vehicles drove through a puddle, the chassis shook violently. The headlights flickered once, then died out. The engines emitted a sharp, screeching wail, and they stalled right on the spot. The moment the doors opened, 2 soldiers attempting to push the vehicle were struck by the lightning. Their bodies stiffened abruptly before crashing heavily into the water. With the vehicles out of control and the standing water electrified, the 2 soldiers suffered cardiac arrest and died instantly. The medical vehicle short-circuited, and the evacuation team plunged into chaos. Inside the cabins, the sound of crying children erupted. A small, chaotic noise that pierced everyone's ears like needles. Li Yu gripped the communication device tight. How many people have yet to cross? The other end fell silent for a moment before the aide-de-camp's hoarse voice replied. 976. 976 life signals are still on the evacuation route, including 312 wounded soldiers and children. As that number was spoken, the entire command channel fell deathly silent for a heartbeat. The next second, the Thunderscale Giant roared again. Rumble! The electrical field expanded even faster. Violet-blue lightning surged along the puddles toward the convoy, advancing with madness. I had to intercept that electrical field could not be allowed to break through. The evacuation team was filled with nothing but the wounded and the young. Without waiting for orders, 6 wings suddenly erupted from Jiang Xinyi's back. Her entire body transformed into a streak of pure, brilliant light, descending gracefully upon the caravan of survivors. As the pure domain's divine maiden, her field of pristine white light suddenly expanded, and the moment the heavy downpour hit her domain, the jagged, violet-blue lightning arcs were forcefully stripped away. The toxic black fog hidden within the rain was instantly purified into a faint white mist. But this was no ordinary toxic rain. It was a geoelectric field unleashed by a GRADE-6 beast. Jiang Xinyi's face paled the moment she forced her forbidden zone to expand. At the edge of her field, the violet-blue lightning hammered violently against the shimmering white barrier. Her wings trembled slightly, and the fabric on her shoulder was scorched away by a stray bolt of venomous lightning. Xinyi! The smile on Xu Xiaodao's face vanished in a heartbeat. Jiang Xinyi didn't look back, gritting her teeth as she replied, "I can still hold it, but not for much longer." She could have easily shrunk her forbidden zone to protect only herself and the ambulance. However, if she did that, the transport vehicles trailing behind would be left exposed to the electric field. And so, she refused to shrink it. Instead, she gripped her Xuan Tian sword tightly, forcing her forbidden zone down toward the puddles on the ground. The white light rippled outward, carving a brief, safe path through the lethal electrical storm. "Keep moving! Hurry!" The medics rushed into the forbidden zone, hauling the fallen soldier back toward the vehicle. The final ambulance engine roared to life. Behind it, the 2 civilian transport trucks began to inch forward. Their tires churned through the puddles, kicking up clouds of purified white mist. But in that exact moment, from across the ruins, a massive swarm of beasts, agitated by the electric field, went into a frenzy and charged toward the escape route. Through the pouring rain, pairs of blood-red eyes ignited amidst the debris. The sound of snarling echoed from everywhere, building up like a crashing tidal wave. Xu Xiaodao wiped the rain from his face as his Nata tattoo flared with a violent crimson light. "Xinyi, keep holding on. Leave them to me. Don't let them breach the forbidden zone. With me here, not a single one of these monsters is getting past." A raging red flame erupted beneath Xu Xiaodao's windfire wheels, tearing through the curtain of rain. The phantom of Nada with its 3 heads and 6 arms manifested behind him, its fire-tipped spear and universe ring glowing in unison. Xu Xiaodao lunged forward, standing firm as an unbreakable wall before the exit. The first lightning-armored beast charged, only to be skewered through the second and third beasts simultaneously swerved, lunging toward the convoy. The heaven-earth scroll slammed down with a deafening boom, burying one of them deep into the earth. The Chaos Heaven silk wrapped tight around another, hurling it back into the heart of the pack. There were simply too many beasts. A level 4 thunder armor beast surged out from the debris, crackling with electricity, and rammed violently into the Nacha war god avatar. Boom! Xu Xiaodao was sent reeling backward, the windfire wheels under his feet flickering like a dying light amidst the storm of toxic lightning. His knees buckled, and he nearly collapsed to the ground. Behind him, a civilian transport vehicle crawled slowly forward. Through the glass window, a little girl pressed her hands against the pane, her face streaming with tears. She didn't know who Xu Xiaodao was. She only knew that this blazing hero was the only thing standing between her and the monsters. Xu Xiaodao caught a glimpse of that tiny face from the corner of his eye, gritted his teeth, and snarled, Trying to get past me? Keep dreaming. He slammed his fire-pointed spear into the ground, forcibly steadying his retreating body. He wouldn't let them take a single step past him. Boom! The Nacha war god avatar erupted once more, a wall of crimson flame sealing the escape route, forcing the beast tied back by 30 meters. Li Yu screamed into the radio with bloodshot eyes, "Give me everything you've got! Suppress them with all your firepower! Don't let a single one reach the sanctuary zone!" The final convoy pressed onward as the roar of artillery and the rattle of heavy machine guns filled the air. Grenade launchers and the last of the military's ammunition stores unleashed hell all at once, forging a wall of steel and fire to protect Xu Xiaodao. Meanwhile, I looked up at the thunder-scaled giant lizard. Though shackled by the black iron coffin, it was still ravenously absorbing power from the thunderclouds and the city's remaining power grid. The lightning core beneath its chest grew blindingly bright. Jiang Xinyi couldn't hold on for much longer. Neither could Xu Xiaodao. "Mr. Qin, the last transport vehicle still hasn't reached the bunker. It's packed with the wounded and the children. We still need 40 seconds. 40 seconds. I stared at the blue-violet lightning sphere forming inside the maw of the thunder-scaled giant lizard. In 10 seconds, at most, it would detonate. If that strike lands, the entire escape route will be consumed by an electrical void. Qin Lie, I can only hold them for another 10 seconds. Xu Xiaodao roared, gritting his teeth in agony. Brother Lie, the truck still isn't in the bunker. On the battlefield, every sound seemed to vanish in this very moment. All I could hear was the torrential rain, the beastly growls, the cries of children, and the heavy, muffled roar emanating from deep within the black coffin. If 10 seconds isn't enough, I'll finish this in one. Those 10 seconds are the limit for Jiang Xinyi's forbidden domain of the mystic goddess to hold. 40 seconds is the time needed for the final transport truck to reach the north tunnel, and the lightning orb in the mouth of the behemoth is already swelling to its limit. The blue-purple arc of lightning illuminates the entire escape route. In that fleeting second, the entire battlefield feels as if the mute button has been pressed. The heavy rain still pours, the beasts still howl, and the guns still roar. But everyone's gaze is involuntarily fixed on that lightning orb about to detonate. Once it descends, the final evacuation convoy will be consumed by the electromagnetic field. Jiang Xinyi's mystic goddess domain will be torn to shreds, and the fire barrier that Xu Xiaodao is defending will collapse. More than 900 people, who haven't yet reached the tunnel, won't stand a chance of surviving. Li Yu grips the radio tightly, his voice hoarse and unrecognizable. "How far away is the last transport truck?" he rasps, as a gravelly voice replies from the other end. 200 meters left. Under normal circumstances, 200 meters is just a tap on the gas pedal. But now, the roads are collapsing, and the floodwater is electrified, forcing the vehicle to crawl inch by agonizing inch through the debris. The little girl behind the window keeps her face pressed against the glass. She clutches a fabric doll, wrinkled from the rain, her eyes staring blankly at the chaos outside. She doesn't understand the significance of that blue-purple electromagnetic orb in the sky. She only knows that all the adults are frantically urging the truck to move faster, and she knows that the big brother blocking the monsters with his own body is still standing firm in the pouring rain. Jiang Xinyi hovers in the air above the convoy, her 6 wings beginning to tremble. The mystic goddess domain is constantly shrinking under the crushing pressure of the lightning field. Along the edges of the white light purification zone, the blue-purple arcs of electricity strike like a swarm of venomous snakes. Her fingers, gripping the mystic heaven sword, turn pale from the strain. The edges of her wings are charred black by the lightning venom, but she does not retreat even a single step. She looks down at the transport truck below, her voice soft but incredibly determined. "Hold on for another 10 seconds, just 10 more seconds." In the next heartbeat, she raises the mystic heaven sword once again, and the mystic goddess domain expands. Boom! The white field of light suddenly surges outward, purging the lightning poison and the torrential rain. The electrical arcs dancing in the stagnant water on the ground are crushed and dissipated, but the price for that power was immediate, as her face turned pale as a sheet. From another direction, Xu Xiaodao stood firm against the 7 beasts, his Nezha battle form already riddled with cracks from the relentless impact. His fire-tipped spear flickered unsteadily, and the rotation of his wind-fire wheels slowed down significantly amidst the electrified storm. Yet the swarm of beasts showed no sign of thinning. If anything, the looming explosion of the thunder-scaled giant lizard drove them into an even greater frenzy. A level 4 thunder-armored beast charged through the flames, slamming headfirst into Xu Xiaodao's battle form. Xu Xiaodao was forced back half a step, the concrete beneath his feet shattering instantly. Gritting his teeth, he drove his fire-tipped spear deep into the ground to steady himself. He looked up at the sea of monsters before him, his usual playful expression replaced by a look of cold, ruthless determination. 3 heads and 6 arms. Activate. The 6 arms of the Nezha avatar burst outward simultaneously, the fire-tipped spear sweeping across the field as the universe ring came crashing down. The red armillary sash coiled around the fastest-moving beasts, violently throwing them back into the pile of rubble. But a thin trail of blood began to trickle from the corner of Xu Xiaodao's mouth. He turned his head to look at the transport vehicle behind him, still some distance away from the bunker entrance. "Big brother!" he roared, his voice raspy and strained. "The truck hasn't made it in. But I can hear it, and I can see the final transport vehicle." The ball of lightning gathering in the mouth of the Thunderscale giant lizard, the profound maiden's restricted zone, on the verge of total collapse. The Nezha battle form, reaching its absolute limit. And over 900 lives cornered in this relentless storm. I looked up at the Thunderscale giant lizard, and that beast looked right back at me. Its fiery eyes were filled with nothing but pure, unadulterated savagery. The lightning orb in its maw had been compressed to its limit. In the next second, it would be unleashed. If 10 seconds isn't enough, I'll finish this in a single second. Raising my right hand, I invoked the 9 dragons chain. The massive, upright body of the Thunderscale giant lizard was ruthlessly pinned to the ground. It struggled frantically, lightning surging back along the iron chains. My right arm went numb, and the entire left side of my body felt like it had been pierced by a bolt of light. From deep within the black coffin, a dull rumble of thunder echoed, as if even the 9 dragons pulling the coffin were momentarily shaken by the power of this level 6 monstrosity. In the next heartbeat, the Thunderscale giant lizard jerked its head up. Crack! It had used its raw strength to snap one of the chains holding the black coffin. The Pangu tattoo on my chest began to glow with a deep, golden light. It wasn't a blinding light, but one so heavy it felt as if the phantom of Pangu slowly began to raise its head behind me. This time, the figure was no longer a mere blur, its muscles rippling with raw power, breathing an aura of ancient times, like a prehistoric giant stepping out from the edge of chaos. He slowly manifested a colossal, heaven-opening axe in his grip, as deep, golden divine runes on the blade began to glow with every passing second, and a torrential downpour began to spiral around the Pangu phantom. Before the rain could even touch the entity, the invisible force of creation shattered every drop into nothingness. The lightning-scale giant toad sensed the lethal danger. It attempted to discharge its lightning, but 9 black dragons roared in unison, their 9 obsidian chains pinning down its arms, its legs, its neck, and its chest. Even though the chains glowed crimson from the scorching voltage, they didn't budge an inch. I took a single step forward, the rushing currents of the storm instantly suppressed. My entire body transformed into a streak of deep, golden light, lunging directly toward the chest of the giant toad. That was where the lightning was most concentrated, and the location of its core energy. The sphere of lightning inside the toad's throat spiraled out of control, the violet-blue brilliance almost blinding me. I pulled back my right fist, and the Pangu phantom behind me mirrored the motion, raising the massive axe high. I let out a low growl. Pangu splits the heavens. As I swung my fist, the phantom brought the axe crashing down in the blink of an eye. The deep golden blade tore through the wall of lightning, as if the very sky and earth were being sliced into 2. In that exact moment, the ferocious light of the axe slammed into the beast's chestplate. Crack! The lightning scales that were thought to be impenetrable finally shattered completely, with violent blue-violet arcs erupting from the fractures. The giant toad let out a soul-shaking, agonizing shriek as the lightning ball in its throat lost all stability and detonated deep within its own gullet. Boom! The terrifying shockwave of lightning recoiled inward. The entire street was bathed in a blinding, sterile white glow. The glass windows of the surrounding crumbling buildings exploded into dust, and the stagnant rainwater on the ground instantly evaporated into a thick, swirling mist. The 9 dragons, dragging the ancient coffin, shuddered violently. The black phantom coffin moved to shield my back, while a flow of dark gold energy surged to protect me. I braced myself hard against the shockwave from the explosion just 3 meters away, but the sheer force still slammed into my chest like a lead weight, and the ground beneath my feet crumbled away. I didn't stop, and I couldn't afford to stop now. Obsidian chains tore through the void one after another, and with a synchronized strike, all 3 pierced deep into the cracks of the Thunderbeast's ribcage. The coffin of burials activated, and the dark gate swung open with a deafening roar, unleashing a terrifying vortex of suction. Ripped from deep within the beast's armor, the Grade 6 core, crackling with blue and violet lightning, was dragged out by the unrelenting chains. The very moment that core left its body, the lightning patterns across the Thunderbeast's hide flickered and began to fade. The colossal creature froze in its tracks, then began to convulse violently. It tried to struggle. It tried to roar. But with its power source gone, the electric sparks vanished into nothingness. Finally, its massive body collapsed. Boom! The 80-meter-tall Thunderbeast slammed into the flooded street, sending water geysering into the air as the entire city shuddered. The violet lightning flashing through the dark clouds above rapidly dissipated. Though the downpour continued, The deadly electrical toxicity in the rain had clearly subsided. Jiang Kenyi's restricted domain finally stabilized. The horde of beasts facing Xu Xiaodao seemed to lose their commander, breaking into a chaotic retreat. In the distance, the convoy of refugees finally reached the entrance of the north tunnel. Their wheels splashed through the water, disappearing into the dark maw of the tunnel. A little girl pressed her face against the rear window. She couldn't make out my face, only a lone black figure standing against the mountainous monster in the torrential rain. She raised her tiny hand and waved frantically. I didn't wave back, simply watching the vehicle vanish deep into the darkness. Only then did I slowly loosen my clenched fists. My right arm was still numb, and a dull, throbbing pain radiated from my chest. The dark golden divine marking on my Pengu tattoo quietly faded into a dull gray. My expression remained stoic, but I knew deep down that such a move wasn't without its price. I couldn't force the power of Pengu's opening of the heavens again anytime soon, or the backlash from the totem would be a nightmare. I stood before the head of the fallen thunderbeast, and as the obsidian chains retracted, the grade 6 lightning core hovered right in the palm of my hand. Inside the core, blue and violet electric arcs continued to pulse, and then a crimson light illuminated the first chain of the 9 dragons, dragging the coffin, causing the second chain to hum deep within my soul. Far away on the evacuation route, the soldiers stood silent for a heartbeat, before erupting into a cheer that shook the heavens. Xu Xiaodao deactivated her war god transformation, collapsing to the ground as she gasped for air. She was at her absolute limit, but the adrenaline rush was worth every second. Jiang Xinyi, the profound heavenly maiden, sealed off the forbidden zone once more, as her glowing white wings touched the earth. Even though her face was deathly pale, and the edges of her wings were scorched by the venomous lightning, her eyes remained completely clear and focused. The evacuation route was finally secure. Li Yu stood beside the command vehicle, staring intensely at the massive carcass of the Thunderscale giant Hydra while the rain streaked down his weary face. I tucked away the grade 6 lightning element crystal core, and shot a quick glance at Li Yu. The Beast King was down, but the remaining horde still had to be dealt with. Keep moving the civilians out. We will handle the cleanup of these stragglers. Xu Xiaodao gripped her fire-tipped spear tightly, pulling herself up from the wreckage. Even Jiang Xinyi's profound heavenly sword began to materialize in her grip again. Her brilliant white wings spread wide, ready for the next wave. I stood firm next to the fallen body of the Thunderscale giant Hydra. High above, a dark coffin slowly manifested in the void, pulled by 9 massive dragons that seemed to suppress the very atmosphere. The remaining beasts seemed to sense the looming threat, snarling as they began to retreat, but in the very next heartbeat, the 3 of us dove back into the sea of monsters. The moment the Thunderscale giant Hydra fell, the lightning storm blanketing the southwest city began to rapidly dissipate. The rain still lashed down upon the ruins, but the flickering blue and purple sparks within the downpour were fading fast. The military's fire control systems, which had been paralyzed by the electromagnetic interference, slowly began to flicker back to life. The static in the communication channels died down, replaced by a flood of urgent yet relieved reports from restored comms networks. The eastern sector was officially reconnected to the command grid. The final convoy of evacuees had safely cleared the north tunnel. The evacuation process for the city's core zone was officially declared complete. Hearing the final report, Li Yu closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. The shoulders of the commander-in-chief for the Southwest Theater, who had spent the entire night on the front lines, finally slumped in a moment of true relief. But before he could fully relax, a series of savage roars erupted from the distant ruins. With the death of the Thunderscale giant Hydra, the electromagnetic field controlling the beasts vanished, and the monsters fell into a state of total chaos. Some of the beasts began to scatter in a mindless panic, while the rest were driven into a frenzy by the scent of blood and the glow of the red moon. They no longer had a set target, acting purely on instinct, and that instinct was leading them straight toward At the northern tunnel, the final entry point for the evacuation team, the approaching horde of mutants is putting immense pressure on the outer perimeter. The logistics teams are calling for immediate reinforcements. Li Yue opens his eyes wide, his hands clenching tight after finally letting go. All support units, maintain your defensive positions at the safe zone. Medical squads, keep moving the wounded to safety. Rearguard teams, hold the line and keep your formation steady. Before the command could even finish, the rubble ahead explodes, and dozens of mutants swarm out from the collapsed buildings. Xu Xiaodao, having just deactivated his Nezha war god form, flops onto the debris to catch his breath. Seeing the chaos, he grumbles in frustration. Seriously? Can't we get even a single minute of peace? Despite the complaint, he uses his fire-tipped spear to push himself back onto his feet. The Nezha tattoo on his left arm glows once more, though the windfire wheels are flickering and clearly unstable. Jiang Xinyi stands right beside him, the edges of her wings scorched black from lightning strikes, her face looking even paler than usual. Yet her grip on the Xuantian godsword remains ironclad. Xiaodao, Xinyi, can you two still hold them off? Big brother, that question is a bit insulting, As long as we're still standing, we can still fight. Leave the tunnel entrance to me. Xu Xiaodao immediately ignites his windfire wheels, transforming into a streak of red light as he blocks the tunnel gate. Riding the flames, his two glowing red wheels turn, causing the puddles on the ground to hiss and evaporate. Suddenly, the vanguard of the mutant pack is smashed apart by the sheer force of his fiery barrier. Jiang Xinyi stands guard at the tunnel entrance, where raindrops bounce off an invisible barrier of pure white light 3 feet in front of her. A few mutated beasts coated in lightning toxin try to bypass Xu Xiaodao, lunging directly toward the tunnel. Jiang Xinyi's gaze turns ice cold, and the profound maiden's domain of light instantly expands outward, stripping the lightning toxin from the beasts and forcing their movements to grind to a crawl. She lunges forward, a single slash of her Xuantian sword carving a blinding white arc across the tunnel. The beasts in the front are sliced in two, their toxic miasma vaporized by the searing white mist. I stand beside the carcass of the thunder-scaled giant lizard, as the phantom of the 9 dragons dragging the coffin manifests behind me. 8 pitch-black dragons with burning eyes bow their heads, and the remaining mutants freeze in place, paralyzed by the forbidden pressure. As a few try to retreat, I raise my hand, and chains from the black coffin erupt from the void, snagging a level 4 lightning bone lizard that was attempting to rush the tunnel. It struggles violently, shooting spikes of electricity from its back, but the lightning does absolutely nothing to the abyssal chains. With a single tug from the coffin of burial, the creature is devoured, its electric energy snuffed out in an instant. I stepped forward, appearing right at the peak of the ridge. The Pangu tattoo began to glow faintly, sending a piercing, tearing pain through my chest. Unable to tap into the Pangu strength anymore, I pulled back my power, forcing the chains to straighten out. The lightning bone beast was crushed, and I tucked its core into my spatial dimension, glancing over the now panicked battlefield. Taking the opportunity, Xu Xiaodao lunged forward, her fire-tipped spear cutting through the chaos. Jiang Xinyi's Xuantian divine sword finished off the final remnants, purging all remaining corruption. Within 10 minutes, every beast near the bunker had been wiped out. The battlefield fell deathly silent, leaving only the sound of rain hitting broken rubble and the faint crying, and the shallow, ragged breaths echoing from deep within the bunker. The deputy officer's voice crackled over the radio, laced with a hint of trembling relief. Commander-in-Chief, the final evacuation convoy has reached safety. The evacuation of the main city sector is now complete. Li Yu stood in the pouring rain, closing his eyes as his grip on the radio finally loosened. He didn't cheer. He simply whispered, "Good. Count the casualties, reinforce the defensive lines, and do not let your guard down." Just then, a medical team rushed out from the tunnel entrance, carrying a stretcher. Lying on the stretcher was the old warrior who had saved the little girl. His protective gear was scorched black by lightning, and his skin was deathly gray as he gasped for air. The little girl ran alongside the stretcher, wrapped in a military blanket, clutching her water-soaked doll. As they ran, she kept asking, "Doctor, will he die? Is he gonna die?" The medics remained silent, as they couldn't offer any empty promises. The warrior had been exposed to the lightning field for too long, and his pulse was fading to a critical level. Jiang Xinyi walked over to the side of the stretcher. She said nothing, simply raising her hand as a soft, white light drifted down onto the soldier's chest, drawing out the lightning toxin bit by bit. His gray face slowly began to return to a healthy color. The medic looked up in shock, realizing the man's heart had started beating again. The little girl stared in awe before running to Jiang Xinyi and bowing deeply. "Thank you, big sister." Jiang Xinyi was surprised, her usually icy gaze softening into something warm. "Go on, he still needs further treatment." The little girl nodded with a smile, following the medics as they disappeared into the tunnel. Only now did it finally feel like a true victory. I didn't say a word, but I understood exactly what she meant. Slaying the Lightning Ridge beast was a win on the battlefield, but saving these lives was what made it a complete victory. Li Yu took a deep breath, turning back to face the control monitors. He scanned the screen, where an aerial shot of the southwest mountain range revealed a dark red fissure stretching for miles, tearing through the peaks hidden within the thick mist. Mr. Qin, the thunder-scaled titan, emerged from right there. Li Yue explained that the military had officially designated it as the Red Moon Rift. Even though the titan is dead, and the rift seems quiet for now, we all know this is just the beginning. I stared at the photo, and the 9 dragons pulling the coffin on my back reacted slightly. It wasn't an intense reaction, but it was definitely there. It is very likely that this Red Moon Rift, much like the Cloud City in the East Sea, is a hotbed of anomalies from the Red Moon catastrophe, even if the scale is slightly smaller. We shouldn't push too deep into the rift right now. I suggest we simply secure the perimeter and install additional signal beacons. As soon as a power signature of level 6 or higher is detected, transmit it to the Black Rock base immediately. Suddenly, the screen lit up with a video call from Lei Zihan. Lei Zihan was reviewing the data from the southwest, and he visibly let out a sigh of relief seeing that Li Yue and I were safe. "Mr. Qin, Commander Lie, how is the situation in the southwest war zone?" "Civilians have been evacuated, the level 6 thunder-scaled titan has been neutralized, and the remaining beasts have been cleared. The defense teams are currently regrouping. That's excellent. He then turned his gaze toward me, his expression turning serious. Mr. Qin, the Dragon Marshal is waiting for your report directly from the Kyoto Command Center. This isn't just about the Southwest. Every defense line in the country is waiting for this report. This victory will serve as the official confirmation that Black Rock Base is joining the Dragon Nation's national defense campaign. How you handle the media is up to you, but please, do not overblow our role. We only specialize in taking down high-level beasts, I reminded him firmly. Understood. The Dragon Marshal has already emphasized this point. The feed shifted to the main command center in Kyoto. The massive electronic screen displayed the combat reports from the Southwest in vivid detail. The Thunderscaled Titan was confirmed destroyed, and the southwestern evacuation was complete. Black Rock Base's performance was rated as a perfect success. The entire hall fell into a heavy silence for a few seconds before thousands of eyes looked up, some clutching their hands in relief, others letting out a long, shaky breath. Everyone was staring intently at the footage of the Thunderscaled Titan being taken down. From his high seat, the Dragon Marshal stood up, staring at the mysterious figure. After a brief moment of silence, he made the sole announcement that, from today, Black Rock Base is officially classified under the highest level of joint operations for the Dragon Kingdom. At that very same moment, a commander drenched in blood at the Beijing front line heard the report and exclaimed with joy. This adds even more power to Black Rock's defense against level 6 beasts, showing them that these creatures aren't impossible to defeat. The news spread like wildfire across every command line. Countless soldiers realized that it wasn't just Jiangzhou. Black Rock Base could now strike down level 6 beasts in other sectors too. This victory didn't just save the mountain region. It gave every unit a glimmer of new hope. After the signal ended, Xu Xiaodao walked over, his body collapsing heavily onto a slab of concrete. Big brother, I'm exhausted. Playing the war god Nezha might be cool, but it's absolutely draining. Jiang Xinyi also landed on the ground, adding, you both did a great job holding the exit. I'm impressed, especially you, Xiaodao. Obviously. Even a guy like me knows how to finish the job. Xu Xiaodao quipped. As long as I don't keep getting spooked like I did earlier, that was barely a close call. And you know it. These items are the bonus rewards from the Southwest region. I took the box without the slightest hesitation. Even though these spirit cores were only minor supplements for me, they would still be incredibly useful for Xu Xiaodao and Jiang Xinyi. Once purified by the 9 dragons drawing the coffin, the residual energy would definitely help with our future leveling up. I promptly stashed the loot into my living space. Xu Xiaodao's eyes lit up. Big brother, are you going to share some of those with me? After I refine them, I'll split a portion for you and Xinyi. The rest will be traded with the military for supplies. You're always so generous, boss, Jiang Xinyi said softly. If I hadn't handled that lightning toxin, you would have collapsed at least a third of the time back there. Watching them banter, I felt a sense of ease wash over me. The Southwest battle was treacherous, but the outcome was far from bad. The lightning forest giant crocodile was dead. The evacuation of the central zone was complete. Our relationship with the military had leveled up, and most importantly, we secured a level 6 lightning element spirit core. The second seal of the 9 dragons had finally been unlocked. I knew I needed to take some time to process this, but I couldn't do it here. The electrical discharge was too intense, so I had to return to the bunker at Black Rock Base. In the distance, across the southwest mountain range, the crack of the red moon glimmered deep within the mist. While the mystery remained, it wasn't yet time to dive into it. You two keep this border secure, and whatever you do, don't act rashly. Understood. I headed back to Black Rock to see if the 9 dragons had truly opened their second seal. The second seal? Jiang Xinyi looked at me, but I didn't explain. I just stared up at the dark, thunderous clouds. Even though the storm seemed to have passed, the sky was still stained with the crimson hue of the red moon. The great catastrophe was far